the metropolitan Boston area. Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, your update.
Thank you. I have a lot of things I'd like to update the community and the board on, but I'm going to use this opportunity to offer tomorrow morning as the chance to hear all those. Travel with John program is at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow at the Senior Center. You can go there in person or you can watch live. Thank you to ActonTV. So 9:30 a.m. tomorrow, and I'll give you updates on road work and all kinds of exciting projects and things like that are happening in town. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is that a collaboration with our Economic Development Office and our summer concert series was launched on Friday in an effort to try to promote local restaurants. We hope that you go to the concerts, and we hope that you have dinner or late lunch before you go. And if you do so, and you show your receipt at the concert, you get $5 off the ticket. So we hope you check out the concerts, and we'll hear more about that in a minute. Thanks.
Thank you. Comments from my colleagues? Oh, Tom.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have two quick things. As John was just talking about the concert series, it continues this Friday with Yellow Brick Road, which is an Elton John tribute. So if you do take advantage of the program that we're offering, you'll have $5 off of that ticket. So please come on by. It'll be a great show. And the second thing, we wanted to thank a lot of people. There's a lot of work that goes into the July 4th event that happened on July 4th. It was pretty popular this year. It was pretty popular last year. We had some great crowds. We had a fantastic fireworks show. And this year at the parking lot locations, everything was emptied out at 11:30. So there were a lot of work and a lot of changes that went into improving this year's event. We had some positive feedback. And I wanted to thank the police department, fire department, Department of Public Works, IT, our new IT director, Carl Volker, was climbing ladders to try to move some access points throughout the event so we could give Wi-Fi access to the food truck area. Maura Haberman, the activities and program coordinator, kind of pulls it all together. She did a great job. The recreation department did a fantastic job with executing the day of event. So it is truly an event where you look, and everywhere you look, there's a different person from a different department. So we just want to thank everybody that had their hand in it and thank the residents for supporting it and coming out to a great event.
Thank you. Alyssa.
Thank you. So I just want to second the gratitude to all of the staff that helped pull together the July 4th event. I thought it was great, and I heard only positive feedback from residents who went, and I'm sure non-residents as well. I just have a few updates, a couple from the Water District. At the most recent commissioners meeting, it was noted that there is progress being made on the Center and South Acton PFAS treatment removal plants, and startup is anticipated soon. So they are expecting that water PFAS non-detect will be flowing in the Center Acton plant by mid to late September, and then the South Acton plant likely in October or early November. And they've also requested advanced startup of our 2 new bedrock wells on the property that we purchased, 549 Main Street, is that the right address? From DEP. So hopefully DEP will say yes to that. And there was a letter to the editor in the Acton Exchange from a resident reminding folks that there is a water use restriction during the summertime, 2 days per week for non-essential outdoor water use. So you can water before 7 a.m. and after 7 p.m. only on 2 days, and there's a map on the Water District website. So North Acton is Tuesday and Saturday, Acton Center and East Acton is Wednesday and Saturday, West Acton is Thursday and Sunday, and then South Acton Friday and Sunday. And if you want to look up your address, go to the Water District website, actonwater.com. On the library department, there's some exciting news. Our library director, Maria Palacio, has been elected as Director-at-Large for Small/Rural Libraries for the Public Library Association Board of Directors. So congratulations to Maria Palacio. I'm assuming since this is small rural that this has more to do with Citizens Library than Memorial Library. And then lastly, there are a couple of picnics coming up, community picnics. So Energize Acton is holding its 3rd annual plant-based picnic at Nara Hilltop Pavilion this Wednesday, July 23rd from 6 to 8. And then the Commission on Disabilities is hosting a commemoration of the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. That picnic will be on Sunday, July 27th from 11 to 2, and it will be at the lower pavilion, which is accessible. So hopefully folks can come out to those 2 community picnics this month.
Thank you. Jim?
And for that picnic, the ADA celebration on Sunday, the announcement will give you a name and a phone number to call to get a ride, a free ride to and from that event. So don't let lack of transportation hold you back. The other thing related to the COD and the Transportation Advisory Committee is that they're working out a time to talk together about the town's public transportation program. And so if you're interested in that, you might want to watch the agendas of the TAC and the COD over the next couple months, or just, contact me and I'll clue you in on when it's happening. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on. We've got a public hearing set for 7:15, so we'll jump over that and get right to new and special business item 4. Announcement of Planning Director Kristen Guichard appointed as the Executive Director of the Regional Housing Services Office. Mr. Manager?
So Kristen Guichard, our Planning and Zoning Director, today is our last day. And so we have some RHSO business to cover, but we also wanted to take an opportunity just to congratulate Kristen on her new role that she'll be starting tomorrow or next week, whenever that is, and thank her for her work here, excellent work here in the town of Acton. And we're happy that we'll continue to work with her in a different capacity. So just wanted to mention that.
I'd like to add a personal note as she approaches. Kristen is one of the delightful people that I actually served with as a colleague for a few years when she was very young and I was somewhat younger. And it's been great to watch how she's expanded her reach from being a junior planner to planning director. She's always been an excellent resource for everyone here. I will personally miss her, and I'm very upset at Liz Russ for stealing her. And I was thinking about it today as I was driving through Kelly's Corner, and it's like, with Kristen gone, who are we going to blame for all the potholes in Kelly's Corner? So you'll be sincerely missed. And I really appreciate all of the 13 years of service you put in for the town. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's been an absolute pleasure to work for the town of Acton, and I'm going to miss everyone dearly, but am very fortunate that I won't be entirely leaving because I'll still be able to provide affordable housing services. But this has been a joy for me to work for the town. It's an amazing organization, both internally and just the general community. And I can't thank every single resident that I've been able to connect with and community member, board, committee member enough. It's just been, it's been amazing. And my coworkers are just, they're great. There's some of them back there, but they're just amazing, talented, smart, passionate public servant. It's just amazing. So thank you for having this opportunity.
Thank you, Kristen. Liz, it's
Yeah.
up to you now.
Yeah, so we're thrilled that Kristen's joining, and Kristen will bring such a depth in land planning, which is something new for the RHSO. I don't have that background, and we have some planning resource, but I think it'll be a different kind of focus, maybe not even focus, but a different offering for the RHSO, which is great. So I'm just going to do a quick update on the RHSO. I think that you've all heard that before. I think the business that you have in front of you is actually on your consent agenda to vote the annual amendment to the IMA. That's the annual process. But I thought while we're here and we could talk a little bit about the transition and have a few minutes on the RHSO update for people who might not be familiar or people of the public. And I provided some slides, that you probably have in your materials somewhere, and maybe people online have that. So there's a quick agenda, you have it there, right? So we'll just sort of start with the RHSO management. So the RHSO is a intermunicipal agreement between 10 communities, and the town of Concord is the lead community, and the town of Concord provides all of the employment. So as Kristen joins the RHSO, she's going to be joining as a contract employee. That's how we all are at the RHSO. And Concord does all of that employee in RFP and contracting. And then you have your member services that you get, which is local support, monitoring and inventory, program development administration. We do the valuations of the deed-restricted properties and all sorts of other affordable housing services. So you can see that there. The basic leadership for the RHSO is the town of Concord holds an annual leadership meeting between all the town administrators and town managers once a year to go over the RHSO and the commitment to continue to engage as a community. And we have a advisory committee that has a member from each community that represents the community. So I'm sure Acton's working on who that's going to be for coming up. The budget process starts in September, and it's basically an hours kind of budget. It's a fee for hours. We run about $80 an hour, and over time, we learn very closely what each community needs for hours to cover all the different functions. And the first budget is prepared for September. That's in time for Concord's CPC application. So they're very early. I think it's September 10th for FY27. So that's one of the first jobs that we'll do together is work on the FY27 budget. And then throughout the year, we do a status report, we do monthly tracking of hours, we have monthly status meetings with each town, including Acton, and then boards and committees as you requested, so you know that I support the ACHC as needed or whatever comes up. Our basic work plan is the ownership monitoring. So the core services I include as monitoring and inventory management. On the ownership monitoring, we look after about 435 units across the member communities. And so that involves annual certifications, refinancing, the kind of situation that came up recently with one of the properties with the deed restriction that is coming due, or resales. In fact, we had a lottery for a resale in Acton yesterday, I think it was, over there at Quail Ridge. Then we also have rental monitoring. So we have 805 restricted units across 29 properties. So for Acton, that would be the Avalon property. We do the monitoring for that. And that's under a monitoring agreement that the town has with Acton, and we perform that on behalf of the town, and Avalon pays the town for that service annually. The SHI management, which we'll talk about there, of the 10 communities, 1,762 units have been added since the communities joined the RHSO. We do a lot of rental mortgage assistance programs. So for Acton, that's the small grant program. We administer that. You can see there the other communities for rental assistance and the home administration, home program. And then we offer trainings and property manager support for housing initiatives. And, yeah. So that's basically what we do, right? And that's, the consistent services. And then for our goals for next year, we have to maintain the office, right, to transition leadership with the co-director. And so I think that how that will look is that you will still see Kristen, and she'll continue to support Acton just from a different lens. And so we have plenty of opportunity to make sure that that's a good transition on all parties' side. And offering workshops and trainings. We have another staff position open too, so that Kristen will be able to do some hiring for her new, people to work with. And then we continue to support the groups that we support, right? The resident owners and tenants. So we do the home program, program administration, monitoring, local projects. There's a number of local projects that we're working on, and continue to support the boards and committees. We have here the FY26 budget, and it's very hard to read, it's very small for me, right? But I think Acton is consistent in the hours, is that correct? Yeah, we added hours to every community for the transition of directors, because, you'll have both of us for the year, though I'll have reduced hours, but that was kind of, not really a surcharge, but it was kind of an upcharge for all the communities, and we applied that evenly across all the communities, so it wasn't done proration by the percentages. And we didn't use as much as we thought we were going to need, so there'll be a little bit less than what people had appropriated, and those invoices are going to go out next week. And from FY25, Acton used 90 hours less than had paid for, so you'll get a credit for those 90 hours coming into the next year. That's how we do that kind of accounting. Yeah, and so that's just the quick summary. So this is 14 years of operation in the RHSO, and it's really, as you know, it's a discretionary kind of municipal service. Many communities don't have the depth of housing resources that you're able to get using the RHSO. So, and that's really due to the leadership of all the member communities that continue to believe that this is valuable and useful. So, yeah, that's all I was going to say.
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Alyssa?
Thank you both for the update. This is not in our packet, so hopefully the slides will go into the additional information, just in case the public is interested in seeing the budget following the meeting. I appreciate all of the work that RHSO does, and I just wanted to take the opportunity. I forgot to bring my box of tissues, Kristen, but I wanted to say that I've really appreciated your contributions to the town. I've been, familiar with them only in the past few years, but I really noticed that you've built a culture in the planning division, and you've got some really great staff, and everybody seems happy and enthusiastic and supportive and positive. So I love coming into town hall and seeing what decorations they have up for this month. That's always a delight. And I think that team culture has a lot to do with who they have had at the helm. And I love your enthusiasm for your work and how much you collaborate. And you foster collaboration among the staff, but also among all of the boards and committees. And with the Habitat for All working group, I was just astounded by how excited you would get. Somebody would just mention, an idea or have a question, and you ran with it enthusiastically and really didn't make any decisions until you had checked in with everybody and you were sure that everybody was comfortable and on the same page. So you are very lucky to have her, and I hope you don't steal anybody else from Acton when you are hiring to build your team there. Just one thing that I wanted to mention that I hope is part of RHSO's work for the coming year, with these owner workshops, I don't know, details about that, but I assume it's a workshop that maybe folks attend in person or on a webinar, if they can go, if they feel that it might benefit them. And I'm thinking about especially the capital improvement program to help homeowners take advantage of resources that are available to them to maintain their homes. Maybe there can be either additional outreach or specific, appointments, kind of like our energy coaching program. I don't know if our HSO is set up to do this, but if it's something that can be built into the future to visit with folks and find out exactly, when they might need a roof replacement or a boiler replacement, something like that, that it could be more individualized, so we can, maintain those properties over time. So thanks again.
Sure. We do the annual owner post-purchase training in May, so we just had it recently. And we had maybe 75 people come. It's a Zoom, but not webinar, it's a Zoom meeting, so everyone can be there. And we cover the deed restriction, and we cover all of the capital improvement projects, some that are covered by programs in the town, and when can it increase your resale value. And people are always interested in how their resale value is calculated. So we come at it that way, as well as condominiums. How are condominiums set up, and if you have an issue in your condominium, that kind of thing. But we're not currently doing any individual visits and helping people with that. But we can offer referrals, because Mass Saves will come and do that, and some other groups. Yeah.
Other comments, questions? Jim?
Liz, I was wondering if you had any advice for us about opportunities or challenges coming up in the next year with respect to changes in state funding, like the housing bond bill, or federal funding with all the confusion there. Whether you had any words for us about, things to watch out for as we, continue on our mission of trying to provide more affordable housing.
Sure. First, I'll say that when I get asked a lot about which RHSO community, is a model community for us, and I always lift up Acton. So I think that you all are consistently creating new units on all fronts. The private 40Bs, or the, units through zoning, or the different programs, or, any kind of opportunity. So I always feel that Acton has consistent progress. Many communities do a lot of talking and appropriate a lot of money that's just sitting there, and they don't spend the money. I'm like, the appropriation's good, but really the measure is the money out the door. Like, that's what I'm always, kind of pushing for. So I think you saw that in earlier discussions today. Like, you don't have very much money to push out the door towards housing, right? I think that getting Powder Mill occupied and getting those people moved in and making sure that lottery goes well and people know the kinds of services that are available, sometimes with large apartments that come in new to a community. It's a lot of new people, and especially they come all at once. And, it's looking great. The construction's going along well. So I think, being ready for there. Maybe it's, a little bit of the social worker and something like that to have some information to give to some of those low-income tenants that are coming in. In our research, we find that 25 to 30% of renters of the restricted units are coming in with Section 8 vouchers, which is a healthy number. There are proposed changes to the Section 8 program and how many fewer vouchers and how that can, transpire, keep our eye on. But the Housing Authority, maintaining that communication with them on the voucher program, because that's a big lifeline for many, many people. And I think that the Acton Small Grants Program, I think Alyssa talked about that, and Janet has really done that. The ACHC in general has, in the housing production plan, earmarked a sort of a strategic view, look at how they're offering their services, and are they being the most effective, and how they're organized. And so having support from you all on that effort, I think strengthens affordable housing in town. And so it's a good time for them to look on their programs and how they're structured. The small grants program, maybe comparing that to other communities, there might be some room for improvements there that help homeowners do more of the repairs. Acton's the only community that requires the homeowner to pay half. All the other small grant programs that we do, and I think we're administering at least 6 of them, the other programs don't require the homeowners, if they're eligible, income eligible, and it's a property that's eligible, and the work is in appropriate use, doesn't require. So there's some things to look at to support the residents.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? No? Well, we will be, we do have your amended agreement on consent for later on this evening. I don't foresee that there's going to be any holes on it, so.
Great.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Take care of our girl. She's our girl. She's ours.
Next, the introduction of Acton for Proaction project.
So this is an effort, a combined effort between Health and Human Services and our DEI office, and Penny and Wanjiko are here to make the presentation, and I'll let them take it away. I'm going to hand out a hard copy version of this for your reference.
Are you ready? Hi. Thank you for having us. It's a great picture. Wanjiko and I are very excited to come and present this project to you. We've been working on it for quite a while. So we want to present the details of it and just know that more collaboration, and we're really excited about that. So.
All right. Next slide, please. Okay. So the DEI office applied for and was granted the Community Compact Grant Best Practices Program. We were awarded $50,000 for work towards a town-wide equity audit. The equity audit has two components to it, the organizational audit and the community audit. The organizational component examines policies, practices, workforce equity, and our internal culture. The goal is to build a more equitable and inclusive workplace. The community audit will assess how the town serves the community. We will examine the composition of boards and commissions, community engagement practices, as well as service deliveries. So the goal here is to ensure that services are fair, accessible, and responsive to all residents.
And so for the public health side of the house here, we have received the same grant, Community Compact Grant. We asked for $40,000 to do a community health equity needs assessment. And a number of the items within that community health and equity needs assessment will really help to support the analyzation and the forward strategies for the DEI office. So we said, we can't compete, we have to combine. We're both in it for the same reasons. Our offices have to do this work. So you'll see that those two things will be coming together. We'll be collecting data to collect together. But for the details of the community health needs assessment, this will be the next slide. We are looking at 3 buckets or 3 factors within this community needs assessment. We need to understand medical care access. Is it available in this area? I've started doing the mapping, and it's a serious issue we need to discuss. It's an issue that's far beyond Acton's purview, but it's within the region and it has to be addressed. And then with that, we look at chronic disease. What are the chronic diseases that are kind of rising up and that we can start looking at targeting and driving those down, and whatever that looks like in terms of a strategy. For behavioral health needs, we have a number of things going on. Every city and town, well, most cities and towns in Massachusetts got opioid settlement data. We have money to explore, to do actions after the fact, so that's very exciting. But to get to the point where we're targeting these services correctly, we need to understand what are the mental health needs in this community, what are the behavior, the substance use disorders that we see in the community, and how do they are impacting our residents. So we'll be looking at some of that. And then within that, what services are available, right? So making sure that we know what services are available for medical and for behavioral health. In terms of non-medical needs, we call these social determinants of health. But what those are really gonna bleed into a lot of Wenjigo's work, but also even a lot into what we just heard from the RHSO. So housing stability, food insecurity, transportation access, good news, we're in charge of that over at Health and Human Services, so we can work on that together. And we are currently in the process of assessing the transportation system, so it's important to know that I'm basically taking 17 different projects and we're sweeping them into one place. And from there, we'll understand more. So employment and education opportunities, and then environmental and community safety, those all come together to really show your overall health and how you, how you're living, basically, right? Thanks.
Sorry. So we have a group of people who participated in a program entitled REACH. So REACH stands for Racial Equity and Advancement and Collaborative Hub. So it was a cohort of several municipalities in Massachusetts that participated in trainings and peer learning activities for about 10 months, and this was last year. So in Acton, we initially had a group of 9 departments, and then we expanded to 11 departments, and you can see the departments there. So it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, health and human services, police, planning, library, conservation, recreation, sustainability, economic development, human resources, and the town manager's office. We formed the name Acton for Proaction, as we thought it captured our collective efforts to be proactive towards inclusive initiatives and programs. Along with this, we created a vision for our work, our racial equity vision. The town of Acton, so this is our racial equity vision. So the town of Acton is committed to fostering a just and equitable community that acknowledges and addresses the historical injustices perpetuated by government policies and practices that have systematically marginalized Black, Indigenous, people of color. We recognize that these past actions have created enduring barriers to full participation in a variety of spaces, including the economy, education, housing, and employment. We acknowledge the deep-rooted impacts of these injustices and are committed to rectifying them through inclusive policies, community engagement, and sustained advocacy. Together, we strive to create a vibrant, equitable community where all residents have the opportunity to thrive and contribute regardless of their racial or ethnic background. The image that that is up there, the images of a person shoveling snow outside of a school, and there's steps, and there's a ramp to the person's right, and one person says, oh gosh, I should have brought my glasses. Could you please shovel the snow? Then the other person says, all these other kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shoveling them off, then I will clear the ramp for you. Then somebody else says, who's on a wheelchair, but if you shovel the ramp, we can all get in. And I think this vision really captures what our racial equity vision is. So it really is about clearing the path so that way everybody can be able to participate.
So how are we gonna do this? Well, first of all, we're not being equitable if we're not talking to others and we're not including the community, right? We need to hear directly from people. Who are you? What's going on? How do you experience the town of Acton? So we wanna do that in our data collection, but we also want that experience of the resident to help us shape all this work. And we know that there are lots of people working in this forward direction here in Acton, and we want to make sure that all voices are included. So we've come up with four different ways in which we're going to move forward together. So the first way is the REACH employee group. We will consistently meet, and we're going to meet, and it's going to serve us two purposes. One, it's going to help us investigate and understand how other departments are already engaging with our community members. So we're gonna beg, borrow, steal, and tap into those, and we're gonna run with those through lines that are already there. But we're also together gonna continue to refine our engagement process. As these discussions go on, we're gonna say, oh, well, we're missing this, we're not getting these folks, how can we do that? So we'll also, at the same time, through this process, be shaping the forward of the whole group's approach to community engagement. So it's not one department is superior at it and the other one is struggling. It's that we all have a similar practice and we all have similar information. So that's good news. Then we are going to look at recruiting a couple of community ambassadors. And those community ambassadors will help us execute some of that data collection. So they'll help us do focus groups, and when we do listening sessions, they'll help us facilitate small group discussions within those little listening sessions. So we will be recruiting 2 to 3 community ambassadors to help us move that forward. Then we're going to be recruiting, and this is a hopeful idea. We may not get anyone who wants to do this, but we're thinking maybe they do want to do it. We know that a lot of people in this community live and work in academics, they work in other spaces where research happens. So we would like to offer, with a small stipend, a request to community members who have had experience doing qualitative analysis or analyzing focus groups and listening sessions, interviews. And then together we would, as a 3-person or 4-person team, we would analyze all of this data that we're getting in and coming into the needs assessment. Once that data's been preliminarily given themes, then we give that to our consulting team that will then take it from there, looking at every single report that's already been done, looking at all the data that's already been collected, so it'll all kind of come together. And then finally, a task force of task forces. So we were very impressed. I was very, very impressed, and I know we talked about this, with Kristen's work with the Habitat for All, and it was really cool to see all of the boards and commissions that were involved in it at town meeting presenting together. So we obviously need to be doing a very similar practice. Everybody, when a strategic plan is being created, we need to make sure we're all on the same page. All of these committees and commissions and boards, they're all doing the work with us, so we're all want to align. How that will work, I'll talk about that with the timeline. So that'll be a committee of committees, and we'll be seeking feedback, making sure that we have the right committees invested in the work that we're doing. So the next slide shows us the types of data collection we have. So like I said, we have existing data collection. We'll be doing one-on-one interviews, key informant interviews with different folks throughout the community, maybe we speak to our HSO. We'll speak to them. We'll speak to sort of going back to that sort of mapping of all the things that we're looking at. We're gonna be talking to different parts and different sectors with that. From there, we'll also be doing focus groups. So thinking youth, parents. Right now, we've just completed 2 Asian elder outreach. So we did 2 focus groups in Mandarin. We have 1 more to go this week for people over 60, learning about how they're experiencing the community, what kind of activities they want to be involved in, and what are their needs. So we've already started some of this, and it'll keep going. And then the listening sessions, that is very, very much coming from our contractor. They have a very specific process. There'll be 3 listening sessions over and then I'll show you in the timeline where they're going to fall. And then I'll show you the timeline. That's what I should do next. It's coming up on a slide. So right now we're in the middle of contracting, understanding what we want to get done. Starting in August, we're going to start focusing on all of the questions that we need to ask. Everything needs to be uniform for research, right? So we can't just have a random question here about something and something over here. So we're coordinating that. We're looking for what's our big bucket catch-all questions that get us to the answers we need for both purposes. So that's going to be going on in the next 2 months. September through November, we'll be running like crazy, collecting key informant interviews, doing focus groups, and then doing these listening sessions. We're going to stop for a second. We're going to give them everything we've learned, this contracting team, 3x3 design, and they're going to analyze it. They're going to come back to us, preliminary themes and directional of what they've heard from everything. Once we get that back, then we're going to hop back to this task force of task forces. We're going to get into a room and we're going to go through a couple strategic planning sessions. Out from those strategic planning sessions, Wanjiko and I will have both implementation plans for what was learned and what we need to do next. And so with that, we will come to you and we will discuss further and we'll refine that plan and make sure that everyone's on board. I think it's really important that that we're all doing this together, because when we go to execute it, it can't be so far out that we can't get there, right? We need to scaffold how we get to wherever we're going. If it's very difficult, small steps will be within that plan to get us there. And, or we're already doing a lot of great things. We just need to refine a few things. So that's the scope of what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? David?
So I just wanted to ask, is the outcome from this process, do you think, a document that summarizes what you found and makes strategic recommendations? That's what I heard.
That's right. So
The only thing I didn't hear was documents, so I just.
There's a document. There's a large report coming.
Okay, and that's in the springtime.
Yeah.
And what do you expect? And not trying to short circuit the process or anything, so I'm not asking for what the strategic recommendations would be, but what is the kind of scope of those recommendations? You know, what kind of things are you talking about? How we would change practices in town? What kind of things would, you know, again, just in scope, not in the particulars?
Do you want to speak to that? Okay.
So it will vary, right? So with boards and commissions, I can envision something where there's certain training for people who are serving on a board and who are serving on a board and commission. When it comes to internal practices, like HR practices, that might look slightly different, because then they would look at what practices are there already and then offer recommendations. So whether it's where we're recruiting or things of that nature, yeah. Does that answer your question?
I think so, but also of the things that you have in this presentation, it seems to me that there would have to be many more than that, right? If you're making an assessment as to whether there is accessible health care or what impediments there are to housing, or, you know, so some of these recommendations could turn into home rule petitions, they could turn into advocating for legislation on the state level. I don't know what, right? You know, so that's.
So I think that's a great point.
Kind of everything.
Yeah. So there's two things I would say. So there'll be multiple directions that we are going to capture a lot of things that are going on in the community, right? A lot of themes, issues that have come up. You know a number of those, but what we'll have with this is we'll have backup detail. We know housing crisis is happening in the country, but why? But why here in Acton specifically? And so then we can look at some key steps that might need to change here in Acton, whether it's educate the public differently, educate people who, you know, landlord, I don't know. But, you know, in terms of like boards and commissions, maybe we go out and we talk and people are like, I don't know what that is. Why would I join any of that? Well, then that means that we need to educate the public better, right? So those would be the scaffolding steps to get more people and different people involved in government. For the healthcare side, you might have an issue, like I've worked on the opioid crisis in my career, right? We did need to bring in all of the legislators to say, hey, there are big buckets of things that are problematic that we as little communities cannot change if we want to see real change here, but here are the ways that we're going to take some action. So we're doing both and, right? You have to do sort of the big picture and the little picture, and then how do you help the individual directly? So there's systems change that will come out of this that will be necessary. There'll be communications changes that will need to be changed probably for the town. How we are interfacing with the public might shift. Maybe we learn a lot more about how people are getting information, and it's something that we didn't really understand or realize. Like, I just learned there's an entire channel that in Mandarin is a hot ticket. That's where you go to tell people in Mandarin what's going on. We're learning that, we're gonna use that, it's gonna get pulled in to support that community more readily. So I think that it'll be dependent on what we see, but the one thing that I left out that I think is really critical that you should know is that in a strategic planning process, specifically in the strategic planning process around health, community health, is that we set, before we get started, criteria that tells us what we're going to choose as our priorities. And so it would be feasible, right? Like, there's some key ones, but we as a group will decide what are those criteria, and then we'll measure those actions against that. Is it feasible? Is it doable right now? If we're like, no, it's not doable right now, we can't, make whatever, we won't do that right now, we'll put that on a longer term list, just like you all do your short term and your long term goals. That's how we would manage that.
Great. And one follow-up, do we owe the grantor anything? Must we provide them with a report? Do we have progress reports back to them in the future?
John has one.
Yeah, part of the Community Compact program is that they provide funding to communities to do interesting and important things, and then we submit a report on that so that they can share that with other communities that may want to do the same thing.
And is it a one-time thing, or do we do it for some period of years?
So the grant has to be spent by July of next year, and the report is due July of next year.
Thank you.
To the state.
Alyssa?
Thank you. I was really looking forward to hearing about this. I'm super excited. I'm glad that it's not only an assessment and an audit, but we're going to develop a strategic plan, because we have a climate action plan, we have an economic development plan, we have an open space and rec plan, a housing production plan, and, human health needs. We need a plan for that, some concrete goals. I'm thinking that so it used to be called the AB United Way. Now it is called the AB Community Compass. But some years ago, that organization formed a racial justice collaborative where a lot of different organizations who were working on racial and social justice came together. At first it was monthly, then it was quarterly, to share, collaborate, work together, find out what each was doing in what different realms, because you don't want to, just be reinventing the wheel, right? If there are so many people, organizations working on the same thing, let's bring them together and be more impactful. So I'm thinking that model would really help here, and you might have all of the details somewhere that didn't fit into this presentation, but I'm thinking that the faith organizations in town are going to be a great partner. The Community Compass, obviously, all of our food access, the food pantry, the community supper, Boston area gleaners, and then folks who might know about what people's needs are because they're just in an organization like the Acton Boxborough Family Network, our civic organizations, right? We have the Democratic Town Committee, the Republican Town Committee, we have the Chinese American Civic Association. I can't remember exactly what their name is, but there's probably a lot of organizations that are already working on these exact needs and can communicate and provide a lot of information. So I'm trusting and hoping that they'll be pulled into this whole process.
Yeah, definitely, and any feedback along the way, like, oh, you missed someone, we need to know that. That's excellent information. And to say too that we will be using all of those plans within this plan. So all of the climate action plan, everything will come into this first as baseline, and then we'll want to be building off of that, complementing those plans as well. That'll all be under consideration as well.
Fran?
I just have a quick comment, and thank you so much. I love the collaboration between departments. I love your enthusiasm, Penny. It's so infectious. And I'm looking forward to helping and seeing what comes of this.
Well, thank you very much. It's going to be very interesting to see how this proceeds. Thank you for coming in. Look forward to getting some updates. Thank you. We've got a few minutes before our public hearing, so let's go on to item 6. Discuss and vote on price increase for Acton Power Choice customers or a reduction in voluntary of renewable energy credits in the standard option. John.
So this is something that Andrea Becerra, our Sustainability Director, has been working with Paul Gromer, who's here to provide a presentation and answer any questions about the option that is before the board. Thanks, Paul.
Great. Thanks very much, John. So I do have a quick presentation to go through the issues for you. We can just hop ahead onto the next slide. So the background here is that, as you know, Town of Acton has a program called Acton Power Choice, which is an electricity supply program for residents. The way the program works is there's a contract between the town and an electricity supplier. The price is locked for the term of the contract, but there is a clause in the contract that provides that if there's a change in requirements for the supplier and legal requirements that increases their costs, they're allowed to request a price increase to match that increase in costs. This is a standard term. All electricity supply contracts like this have such a term. It's invoked very, very rarely, but it is being invoked now. And it's because of a new requirement imposed by the entity that runs the New England power grid called ISO New England, where they have a new requirement designed to improve the reliability of the electric system by paying generators to be on standby, available if they're needed. It's called DAISY, the Day Ahead Ancillary Services Initiative. DAISY's a little more user-friendly. And the cost of this program, the program began in March of this year, and the costs of this are now rolling through electricity supply prices throughout the state. It's in the cost of Eversource Basic Service, it's in the cost of other, or will be in the cost of other aggregation program contracts as well. So we can go to the next slide, which is just says there are really two options for the town to deal with this price increase request. One would be to increase the price in the program by the amount to cover the cost of DAISY. The alternative would be to reduce the cost of the program by reducing the amount of voluntary renewable energy that's included in the program. So you can either increase the cost or you can reduce voluntary renewable energy in an offsetting amount and keep the price the same. And I just prepared 2 slides that illustrate that. So if we increase the price and leave the renewable energy unchanged, you'll see the price increase is about it's 7.39 cents a kilowatt hour. It's about a 5% increase. The one thing that's, and the numbers are shown on the slide there, the one thing that's significant that I didn't include on the slide is that with the current prices, the town has one option, the basic option, which is below the cost of Eversource Basic Service, which is the primary alternative. If you flow through this increase, all of the town's options would be above that basic service option. Just an important data point. We can see the alternative, which is on the next slide, which shows reducing the amount of voluntary renewable energy, and that would result in no change in price for the program. And the reductions in renewable energy would all come in the standard product, and it would be reducing it from 45% additional to 23% additional. The basic product has no additional renewable energy, so that couldn't change. And we would leave the green alone because that's a 100% product, so you don't want to go below 100%. And there aren't all that many customers on the green anyway, so we can do the whole thing in the basic. The one final slide I have is to show that even with this change, Acton would remain a leader in additional renewable energy in its program. And this slide shows the amount of voluntary renewable energy in all towns that have renewable energy in their standard products. Acton is in the red, where you are at the current level. You can see you're number 4 in the state, so way up there. If you drop down, you taking that option here, you're still well in the top, quarter, or certainly the top half. So you're still in a leading position. You're not just quite as far out in front as you are today. And I think that's the end of my slides, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Alyssa?
Thank you so much, Paul. I have a question about the bar graph. I'm assuming that with this requirement, all of these other communities will have to make this choice. Do you have any idea what the trend has been for the other towns and cities?
Yes, so many face a similar choice. Not exactly all of them, just to say, because it depends on the date of when your supply contract was signed. If the contract was signed before the program became law, then this price increase is appropriate. For anybody who signed their contract after the DAISY program was approved, which was way back in January 24, there's no change in law for them. So not everybody faces this. But of the towns that do, I'll say that different towns are taking different approaches. So some have reduced the amount of voluntary renewable energy to keep the price the same. Natick is an example of that. Others, Lexington as an example, have decided that they're going to increase the price and keep the renewable energy the same. So different towns are going in different, taking different choices.
Jim?
Hi, Paul. It's great to see you again. How many months are left in the program after this change would take effect?
So the current contract runs through December of next year. So that's about 16 months left in the program.
Okay. A couple more. You presented the two options, A and B, and I was wondering if we knew anything about the math that went into saying that reduction of voluntary recs would equal to the impact of the price increase. Just want to make sure we understood the assumptions behind this before we went ahead with it.
Yeah, so the way the arithmetic works is the supplier starts with the amount of money they need to recover to collect DAISY, which is the additional cost of DAISY times the kilowatt hours from when it started, which was March of this year. They can then, by dividing that by the kilowatt hours remaining in the program, can create an amount for a price increase. To calculate the REC decrease, what they look at is the percent of voluntary RECs that were reduced and the price per REC, and multiply those out, and looking only at the RECs in the standard product. The price per REC they're using is $36, which is the price in the contract, and is also about what the market price is. The way the math works, actually, the town comes out a little ahead, or the supplier comes out a little behind in the REC reduction option. I asked them twice if they would stick with that number, and they said they would. So they don't save quite as much at the 22% REC reduction as they would collect if they flowed through the price increase for everyone. But they've said they would do it, and it's close, but they would lose out a little. And I can send you separately, if you're interested, like the formulas and the actual math.
Do we think that the vendor and DPU would entertain any third option, some hybrid, halfway in between option? Or are we pretty clear that because of the timing and the regulations that these are really the two choices that we have?
Great question. No, you have more choices. So as far as the state regulators are concerned, they would just want you to tell everybody what you're doing. Just disclose it to customers and be transparent about it. That's their concern. And all the supplier is concerned about is that they break even in the end. So they would entertain any combination of things that would get them there.
In the communication that we send out, I remember in the past that communications tend to be vetted pretty heavily by DPU. And can we tell people that if we go with the reducing the RECs option, are we allowed to remind people that if RECs are important to them, that we have this green option at 100%?
Yes, absolutely. And good news there is that the DPU has really changed their approach to regulating programs like this. And whereas they used to be extremely prescriptive and micromanagey, now they're giving cities and towns much more discretion how to manage like this, both how you notify customers and the content of the notice. The only requirements they have is that the notice tell people what the price and rec option is today, and then how it would be after the change. So say before, it's this, then it's going to become that. You have to say that part. You can say whatever else seems relevant to you or what you decide would be useful for the residents to know.
Sorry, just one last question. In the past, when we've talked about the impact of the voluntary rec programs, most of the recs in Massachusetts or New England are, of course, being bought by utilities because they have mandatory requirements for those. But there is that extra impact by all these towns buying recs. And I've tried to describe to people what the relationship is between increased purchase of recs and the production of new wind energy. And it seems to be kind of indirect, but I wanted to make sure I understood if there was any, quantitative information about if we reduce the number of recs, presumably we're reducing the demand for recs because we're not buying as many, and that would then in turn impact like the auction of prices for recs, that recs could get less expensive because there's fewer people competing for them, and that in turn could potentially cause a wind developer to say, oh, well, this project penciled out really nicely, but, now there's, the recs are this much less, so I'm not going to go ahead with my wind project. And each of those steps are very confusing to me, and I would love to get your perspective on the impact of, reducing voluntary recs on the future production of clean energy.
Yes, and you're exactly right that it's indirect, because when a town buys voluntary recs in any year, you're buying recs produced by projects that already exist. So you're not actually directly changing the amount of recs available today. You're doing just what you said, which is you're creating a market demand which will help to increase the price or maintain the price of recs going forward, and hopefully will help to incentivize the development of new recs in the future. It's sort of a, if we buy it, they will build it strategy. It's the same strategy underlies a lot of state energy policy. The state RPS, for example, works on the same general principle. We're going to require it, and so people will build it in the future. But you do ask a good question about what's the impact, and there may be two things to think about there. One is, given federal policy today, does buying additional recs actually lead to the development of new projects? Buying additional recs can only lead to the development of new projects if people can get new projects permitted. If you can't in the current environment, maybe we're having less of an impact through the rec purchases today than we were at a time where the federal government was willing to permit offshore wind and other things. So that's a factor. And I'll say with regard to that, some communities have found that to be significant and have said, well, if we were ever going to scale back on this, now is the time because it's having less of an impact. Other communities have said, no, clean energy is under duress now, we need to stand firm and show our support. So it could go either way, but it's a factor to consider. Another factor to consider is the size of Acton's impact, given that you're only one town. So if we look at Acton's voluntary rec purchases as a percentage of all of the voluntary rec purchases by the other aggregation programs, Acton accounts at your current level for about 4% of the total, which is significant, I'd say, for a town of your size. I mean, Acton is having an outsized impact here. But if we look at the impact of Acton as compared to all of the rec purchases, including not just aggregation customers, but all customers and the required recs as well as the voluntary ones, the impact is, of course, much smaller, and that comes down to about 0.2% from Acton's decisions. But you're part of a group of communities and a state policy that together are having a big impact, but your percentage of the total is small given your size.
Thank you so much. That's all my questions.
David?
I don't have any questions, but I would just like to let everybody who's listening know that REC is a renewable energy credit. It is what's bought and sold to get renewable energy. People who produce renewable energy are paid for them, and people are paid for their RECs, and people who want renewable energy pay for RECs. So everybody says RECs here because renewable energy credit is too long.
Thank you. Thank you. Forgive me. Sorry for slipping into the jargon there. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the community?
Thank you. Deborah Symes, Concord Road. First, I want to acknowledge that this is kind of a dicey thing to decide, and I appreciate the difficulty of trying to, sort of parse through all of this. I've worked with the APC program kind of since it started back in 2017 in one capacity or another, so I feel relatively familiar with it. I have so much writing, I'm going to try to terse it up here. I think that I did just based on a report that I got at 5:20 tonight, a recent report from Peregrine on what our average user in town, average residential user in town, how many kilowatt hours that each of those households consumes, and it's, as of June, about 630 kilowatt hours a month. Did a little back of the envelope math real fast. And for all three categories of subscribers to the program, so the basic, the standard, and the green, the increase, and Paul, if I'm wrong on this, please tell me, but I think the increase in supply cost would be under $5 for all categories of subscribers. I make assumptions. I assume that people, not everyone, but that a lot of people who opt up to the 100% green because you pay a premium for that, generally can afford it more easily than people who hew to the basic, some of whom just want a better deal, some of whom need a better deal, really. So one of my questions sort of to Paul and to all you guys to think about, and Jim, it goes to your question about can we do something hybrid-ish, is there any legal way that we can sort of, I hate this phrase, but split the baby, and reduce RECs a little bit and increase prices a little bit and arrive at some place that doesn't mean that we sacrifice so much of our voluntary renewables for the 16-ish months that remains on the contract. And then the other thing I want to say that's sort of a little cul-de-sac is that in thinking about all this over the last few days, it makes me want to ask the board and everybody who's involved with this sort of stuff for the town down the road a little bit to sort of do a 30,000-foot zoom out and think about, given all the factors in terms of how the energy markets have changed, federal policy has changed, God help us, and a variety of other factors that go to this kind of program. I want us to think about how effective is what we're doing and can we do a better job in this program. I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from the public?
Tom Beals, Willow Street. So I know what the RECs are. I get a quarterly check for the RECs of my solar panels. Who is buying these voluntary RECs? who's paying for them, right? I infer from what's been said so far that among the buyers for RECs are utility companies. Who is volunteering to purchase the RECs that you're discussing?
So the participants in the Acton Power Choice Program, so the cost of the RECs is included in the price of the program.
So if someone is in the program in all of these levels or the levels above the basic, part of their energy payment each month purchases additional RECs?
Correct.
Thank you.
Jude Aaronstein, Gregory Lane. I guess I've been thinking about the choice you have to make and how many comments you hear from people or emails talking about electric prices. And I think what Deborah said really struck me, that the people who decide to opt up can opt up, most likely. And so is there a way to, sort of look at what you've been hearing in order to make this decision outside of the space here? Partly because the way I think of it is that it's a contribution. I think of it as a contribution. And if it's $5 a month that I'm willing to contribute to the future of a healthier planet, then I'm happy to do that. And I'd love to be able to communicate that to people in the community. It's like we donate to lots of things. People donate to their church or to their, favorite organization. And this is a way that, in an odd way, the town is saying, you can donate to a more livable future. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Karen Root Watkins, Strawberry Hill Road. Jim, you mentioned the option that if we had fewer RECs, people could opt up to Active Power Choice Green, and then, they would be contributing through that 100% option. But the truth is that, as a community, we don't have that many people who have opted into Active Power Choice Green. And I think just looking at our situation at the moment and how renewables are under such, are being undermined in so many ways, that although I really appreciate people's budgets and the costs that people are facing, it just feels as though it's time to stand fast and say, we really feel that renewables are important and essential to our future. And so we're going to keep this component of the program. But I would love to follow up on something Deborah said. I would love to see us explore just the whole energy market and educate our community more about, what the trends are for the future and what we need to understand or what we can do. Even though this feels like a very small step, 0.2% sounds pretty depressing, actually. But it's still something. So, thank you.
Thank you. Well, all right, question for the board. Okay. I believe we have one online question.
Hi, this is Corinne Hogseth. I'm a member of the Finance Committee, but I'm asking on my own behalf. I hope I'm not really loud in there. There's legislation pending in Massachusetts that would end energy choice. How would that impact this stuff? Or what does it impact it?
So it would not. So you're right, there is legislation that would end private sales to residential customers for electricity. So those are the suppliers who reach out to customers one at a time. The legislation does not affect aggregation programs. It would not. Those would continue even if the legislation were to pass.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else, Tom, or is that it? Okay, thank you. Well, let's move along with this. Any initial reactions from members of the board? Which way you want to go? Alyssa?
Thank you. I had been leaning towards the option where we would increase the price and keep our rec at the same level, primarily because we had the Green Advisory Board recommend that option, and I feel that the Select Board should rely on our advisory boards when it comes time to make decisions. Probably more impactful was the presentation by the Resource Force. And this was before I was on the board, but they, the youth and the high school are approaching the select board and saying, look at Lowell, they're at 45%. We need to do as well as at least Lowell as a community with a lower median income. However, I'm thinking now, given the short time period of 16 months, given, communication from residents about costs and uncertainty in today's economy, and also the information that Paul provided about the recs not having as much of an impact if new projects are not able to be permitted, such as offshore wind, et cetera. I'm leaning now towards keeping the price the same because $5 a month is $60 a year, so that's not entirely insignificant. But I do think that, as Deborah suggested, we should take another look at the program and make sure that there aren't other options to do better and be more impactful that we're currently missing.
Thank you. Other comments? David?
Yeah, I am not in favor of raising the price at this time. I think we should reduce the recs for a number of reasons. Couple of the reasons relate against the, when you compare what our price would be compared to Eversource's standard price. I think one of the selling points that we've used for the program in the past is that we've been almost always able to be below Eversource's standard price. And going above that, I think, is bad. I think it actually could lead to permanent customer loss out of our program. And I think that would be worse for us long-term. I also think that it's the raising the price of electricity at this time is discouraging for people who might want to be converting to heat pumps, and that's counterproductive in my mind. I also think that we have a better chance of negotiating a competitive long-term rate next year. I mean, we'll be starting the process probably a year from now, roughly, to negotiate it for the, beginning in 2027. And I think that, obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but my feeling is that we'll be able to negotiate a price that's better than these raised prices, at that time. And finally, I think that we could make up for the number of recs that we use as a community by a renewed effort to get people to select Acton Power Choice Green. We only need a really small percentage to push that over the top and add, and to counter this loss. So I'm not in favor of raising the price at all. And so for me, actually, I don't care if I'm not looking to split anybody. I would not want to raise the price at this time.
Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same way as Alyssa and David. I do want to acknowledge, though, the great memo from the Green Advisory Board, and that if we were, and that the environmental impact of reducing the number of recs is real, although very small and hard to measure. So I really appreciated Paul's explanation that, purchasing a renewable energy certificate doesn't mean we're, doesn't mean that that magically the electrons we're getting are somehow from a wind system. It's much more indirect than that. And given that, I'm happy to have take the next 16 months with reduced RECs and keep our promise to people about that. The program has two purposes. It's both to reduce the cost and to increase the environmental benefit. And at this point in time, we're weighing on the cost aspect of it more. And it seems like the right thing to do at this time.
Thank you. Fran?
I'm completely on board. I had a few folks change my mind. I was with option A and decided on option B. It's a competitive thing, more than anything.
Thank you. Alyssa?
I would just emphasize Jim's learning from Paul that the letter is not so prescribed, and we can actually remind people that if they do care about the percentage of RECs, that they have the option to opt up to Power Choice Green. Definitely have that included in the letter. I assume that's sustainability staff who's writing that.
Thank you. Yeah, my own thoughts are that in addition to the great points my colleagues have all raised, I'm concerned it's probably not a surprise to anybody, there's a great deal of skepticism about government these days. And I think if everybody figured that it was a locked-in price, very few people, including myself, never read all of the details of the contract, never realized this was an option, and it is a very small amount. But I think for the select board to change mid-course feeds into the narrative that there's some sort of a bait and switch going on here. So I think we can look for a better deal in 16 months. So I agree with the majority of the board, but I do think we should probably take a vote if anyone would care to make a motion. David?
I move that we leave the prices in Acton Power Choice the same and opt to renew the RECs on the standard option to meet the needs for Daisy.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, may I just make a comment just for information purposes? In case it affects the wording of your resolution, the way this would be implemented would be through an amendment to the contract to reflect what you've decided. So in the event you needed to explicitly say as your vote that the contract, you would authorize the town manager to enter into a contract amendment, you would want to say that if you needed to do that.
May I replace my motion?
You may.
I move to authorize the town manager to amend the Acton Power Choice contract to leave the price the same and reduce the RECs on the standard option to meet the Daisy requirements.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much, Paul. Okay, now to our 7:15 site plan hearing, which is not that late. Let me read the legal notice. The applicants can come forward while I do this. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on July 21st, 2025 at 7:15 p.m. in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room, 204, at the Town Hall, 472 Main Street, Acton, and virtually at actonma.gov/meeting/BOS on the application of River of Life Church for a site plan special permit under zoning bylaw section 10.4 and two separate use special permits under zoning bylaw section 10.3, 6.23, and 3.5.15, paren 9, at 45 Nagog Park. The applicant proposes to construct a clubhouse, pickleball enclosure, and tennis court enclosure on the property within a portion of the property leased from the owner. Application materials and how to participate remotely are available online and at Acton Town Hall. And these are all, I will not read the whole list of the documents, but they're all available on the town website. So, to your presentation.
I assume I have to press the button, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, folks. My name is Greg Roy with Dillis & Roy. This evening, civil engineer for the applicant. There's several of us at the table, so I thought I'd just let everybody go around and introduce themselves, if that's okay.
Marcus Lewis, owner of the project.
Mike Coons, Mogul DeStefano Architects, architect on the project.
Brian Butler, Oxbow Associates. We filed a notice, the wetlands filings for the project.
Thanks very much, guys. So I appreciate your time this evening. I think you started at 5, and I'm keenly aware that no one likes to listen to civil engineers, so I'll try to be as brief as I can. But I did want to give you a brief overview of what we're looking for this evening. I don't know if it's possible to put the plan on the screen, but I'll talk for a minute while we're waiting. As you read, we're actually here for 3 special permits. We're proposing an outdoor recreation facility, which is allowed in the zone, in the zoning district by special permit from your board. So that's special permit application number 1. Special permit application number 2 is, I'll talk a little bit more in detail about this, but we're asking for a reduction in the required number of parking spaces, which the bylaw allows your board to do by special permit. So again, that's special permit number 2. And then, of course, we trip the project size and scope triggers site plan approval, which is also a special permit. So we're here on all 3 of those things, but I'm going to try to talk a little bit more globally. Thank you very much for this. So project, as you read, is located at 45, Nagog Park, which is on the screen here, the road at the top of the screen. Non-sit path is the curved right-of-way that's located there on the bottom of the screen. So it's sort of positioned in between those two, but the primary frontage for the site is on Nagog Park. The property is currently used as a church. So there's a church building. It's grayed out here, but it's the polygon rectangular-ish shape in the middle of the property. There are 2 primary parking areas. There's 2 parking areas. The primary parking area is the one to the left of the screen, which is where the access is from Nagog, and has the bulk of the existing parking on the site. There's also a smaller, it doesn't show very well on this plan, but on the right-hand side of your screen, or the easterly side of the site, there is an overflow parking area as well that's accessed through that darker gray driveway that you see there. And just for reference, further west along the property line, there's some jurisdictional areas relative to the Wetlands Protection Act and the town's Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Incidentally, we did open that public hearing with the Conservation Commission last week. That went well. If there's any questions specific to that, Mr. Butler is here for that. But I did just want to put you in the context of the larger permitting. That process is still ongoing as well. So we are proposing this evening to construct a tennis and pickleball facility at the site. It would be primarily on the southerly side of the site. There's 3 primary structures that we're proposing. The first, smaller rectangle to the west, would be what we're referring to as the clubhouse. This function as the primary entrance into the facility. And then there are 2 sort of longer rectangular structures. The northerly one would be the pickleball, and the southerly one would be the tennis facility. So we're proposing to separate those 2. From a parking standpoint, we're proposing to keep the parking intact. I know I'm going to talk a little bit more about our parking waiver in a minute, but I'm just giving you a little bit of an overview. We're proposing to keep the parking essentially in its current configuration on the westerly side of the site. And then portions of the proposed buildings would actually be constructed over the overflow portion that currently exists on the property today. You'll see in a few minutes, we've made the argument that we do not believe we need that parking for the combined use on the property, and I'll kind of go over those numbers in a few minutes. We've, of course, looked at this from stormwater management standpoint, so we've designed the site for stormwater management. Again, a lot of the impervious area from the parking areas is pre-existing and goes to several pre-existing, or two primary pre-existing drainage basins. The most notable is the one on the sort of easterly bump out that's shown there, and it's sort of a egg-shaped hatched area, if you will. That's a stormwater management area. We're proposing to maintain that and direct a lot of the stormwater there after we've added some pre-treatment and infiltration to the site to accommodate for some of the increased impervious area that we're proposing in that area. So I think I'll get to the parking at this point, and for that, I'm going to have to look at my notes because I gave you a lot of numbers, and I'm going to assume that I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but I did want to give you a real cursory overview here. The existing parking spaces on the site today, including both sides of the site, is 207 spaces. The main lot that we're proposing to keep primarily intact is 153 spaces, and the overflow lot on the easterly side of the site is 54 spaces. When we work all of the proposed modifications particularly with the addition of the clubhouse facility, there are some modifications that we need to do to the existing parking. Our proposed parking would be 148 spaces, so we're proposing to go from 207 to 148. So that's sort of the executive summary of what we're proposing to do at the site. We did an analysis of the parking that would be required by a literal interpretation of your zoning bylaw. And I'm just going to go, there's church, there's office, and there's outdoor recreation. When you combine all those together, it would require 581 spaces at the site. So that made us scratch our heads a little bit. And so what we've done in the next several pages is we've analyzed what we think we actually need at the site based on historical use of the church and proposed historical use really of Marcus's existing facility, but also some other facilities around the area. So what we have come up with is that, and bear with me here, I need to get to the right thing, that the church, and again, services are, the average Sunday attendance is about 120 folks, which equals about 40 parking spaces. Special events, that could swell to 200, so you're talking Easter services, Christmas services, that kind of thing, a couple times a year. That could swell to 67 parking spaces based on our analysis. The racket club use, the proposed use, there'll be 7 employees. There'll be 42 players on the court on average. So if you assume that we have players coming and going, and you were to multiply that by 2, that would get us to 91 spaces, which is a really conservative estimate. That's sort of a 1-to-1 player per vehicle assumption, and that everybody's there at the same time coming and going. We believe, based on the demographics that Marcus has provided, that a large portion of the folks utilizing the facility are families, so we have a lot of people coming, in a carpooling type situation. So our analysis shows that really 67 spaces is what's needed for the racket facility when you factor in the double or triple or quadruple occupancy in the vehicles. So when you combine all of that together, absolute maximum Sunday parking demand for a couple hours, right, when church is in service, would be the 67, And if you looked at took the 91 spaces, it would be 158 spaces. If you were to take our what we believe is realistic view of the Racket Club and add it to a more realistic average, or more realistic number of spaces for the church, we believe that it's more like 117 spaces on that demand, that couple-hour demand on a Sunday morning. So that's why we dare ask you for that waiver, is we think that the 581 spaces that the bylaw has as calculator is just quite a bit more and in excess of what we would require for this site. I won't go into it, but we did provide several other data points, if you will, which I think you folks have. We analyzed West Fit on Littleton Road in Westford, and several other sites, Westboro, Nelson Ball Pickleball Courts in Lyman Street in Westboro, Woodbury Racquetball Club and the like, and we provided some data points there for your consideration. I wanted to acknowledge two things, and then I wanted to stop talking and take any questions or comments that you folks had. We did get the memo from your staff last week. We have had a chance to go through that. We don't have any issues with those recommendations that staff recommended. We're happy to talk individually about them, but I just wanted to kind of globally say that the applicant doesn't have any concerns. Happy to accept those. If you were to choose to condition the project, we'd be happy to accept those as conditions. The only other thing I wanted to acknowledge, we did get the peer review letter, but it came, I got it handed walking into the meeting, so I apologize, but I'm not prepared to talk about that tonight. We skimmed through it. It's a detailed letter. A lot of times they are. I don't really see any, in my skimming of it, I haven't given it a deep dive, obviously, but in the 15 minutes reading it outside, I don't see any real significant issues. I think there's a lot of details we'd have to work through, but we don't see any issues resolving that. So I think I wanted to end there unless anybody had anything. Okay. Happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a couple of process comments first. Especially where we don't have any decision yet from the Conservation Commission, I don't think the Select Board would be likely to do a lot of approvals before we hear from Conservation. I don't know what their timeline is for getting those approvals. Secondly, just so you're aware, we go down to only one Select Board meeting in the month of August, which is like the last week in August. So
saw that,
the next time you'd have a chance to get here would be then, which would give you ample time to read the peer review letter, I would expect.
I hope so.
So I think those are a couple of items. Couple of questions I'll hit you with that right at the beginning you can ponder and respond to or not, just think about it. And I'm sure other people might have the same points. If there is an issue with the numbers on the parking, is there a possibility of suspending the use of the facility on Sunday mornings to accommodate more parking for the church use? If there's some kind of an internal agreement that could be reached about that. The other point that I would have is, Nagog Park Drive is not a public road. It's privately owned. I don't know what the ownership of that is, but there's a possibility of negotiating the possibility of having overflow parking along Nagog Park Drive at that point as a possibility if some of your numbers aren't working. So I would suggest that in the intervening weeks you think about those things and see if that might solve a problem or create a problem for you. Mm-hmm. And with that, I will open it up. Jim.
I was the Select Board member assigned to this project, so I did get a few precious minutes with Kristen before she, disappeared. She's really right there, but this is her last few minutes as planning director.
Yes.
But I did get to talk with her. So I did want to agree with your assessment, Dean, that the GCG comments are extensive and technical, and that to get a response from you in a couple, 2 weeks perhaps, in a modified plan, would then give GCG, again, a chance to look at your changes and, evaluate whether the changes you've made respond to their concerns. And so that having, I think it's great. I think it's good that we have, discussion and comments from the public and all that tonight. But it'll almost certainly require a continuation to to that late August meeting. I think that was the main thing I wanted to say. I think the technical points in the planning memo do speak for themselves, and it's great to hear from you that, they don't see any particular problems with those, but to see those reflected in a plan is going to be really helpful. I mean, because they do play against each other, like, providing enough bicycle parking spaces is going to use up some of your car parking spaces, so the numbers shift a little bit. And there's, making sure that we have, appropriate amounts of parking that's appropriate for people with disabilities. There's a few key things that I'd really want to make sure we're actually in a plan rather than just conditions on the permit. Yep. But thanks.
David?
Thank you. A few miscellaneous questions. Is the roof over the courts, is that up all the time, retractable? Or is it? That's a fixed roof. Okay, and there are two separate roofs for the pickleball side and the tennis side? Yep. And what is over the walkway between the two? Is there no roof, soft roof?
Nothing in between.
So you walk down the
walkway.
You walk down the walkway, if it's raining, sunny, whatever it is, and you walk into your court to play.
Yeah, you'd be accessing through the clubhouse, correct?
You
So-
access the courts to the clubhouse. And so that
Correct
would
me if
be-
I'm wrong, the clubhouse, you come out the walkway, which you just told me is uncovered, if I understood you correctly, and then you go, or do you not go through the walkway, you go right into the courts?
Yes.
And then around the edges of everybody's courts to get to your court?
Correct.
Got it, thank you. You talked about adding pretreatment for stormwater. Can you tell me what kind of pretreatment? Is it?
Yeah, sure. We on the portion of the southerly portion of the park, I don't have the plan up anymore, but we're actually going to be repaving it, the section that's sort of adjacent to the proposed clubhouse, and we're going to be proposing a proprietary storm scepter type unit that will treat the stormwater before it discharges. So we'll be improving that existing condition essentially. We'll be picking up that flow that's not pre-treated in that manner at this point. We'll be adding that in and then sending it over to the existing detention basin, which is that area on the easterly side.
Okay, pretreatment like for settling?
Yes,
Got it.
yep. We'll take out sediments and.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I have two questions for planning. Thank you. If this is undercover, why is there an outdoor recreation permit?
I believe this is for commercial recreation. I'm not sure.
So, but he said in the beginning, one of the special permit things that we needed to approve was for
Yeah.
outdoor recreation.
I may have misspoke. It's commercial recreation, I apologize. Excellent question.
Thank you. And my one other thing is this really multiple special permits or one special permit with multiple conditions? Because we've done parking and things before under the same special permit. We didn't need 3 special permits.
Yeah, so they applied for 3 separate applications, but I think, and Kristen can correct me if I'm wrong, the decision would be best to be issued as one comprehensive decision.
Great, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Alyssa?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is, do you anticipate any folks walking in, given your proximity to Avalon and even maybe to Nagog, rather than driving in? And that would be even more convincing for the need for fewer parking spaces.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's certainly not impossible. Does anybody have any data on that? Or-
I would say it's possible. It's possible. I'm familiar with the area. I don't know. But yeah, honestly, if we had some players, would they walk over? Yeah, sure. It's, 5-minute walk, not even, so, yeah.
Thanks, we can leave it at that. And the wastewater is independent on this parcel, or it's part of the wastewater treatment plant at Nagog?
It would tie into the wastewater treatment plant.
All right.
Yeah.
And have you been before the board and received the go-ahead for capacity for this larger facility? Because I'm guessing this is a lot larger than the rental place at Nagog Woods.
Yeah, from what I understand, yes. I don't have the actual date on that. You're looking blankly at me, so we'll have to get back to you on that for sure. But yes, a petition was definitely made. I don't have that with me in terms of the result, but we can certainly get that to you. But
Okay.
it would be a part of we'd send the flow to the existing treatment plant would be the idea and the
Okay.
proposal.
Yes, we definitely would need to see that. And I'm definitely in favor of a sidewalk repair rather than a sidewalk fund contribution. There was a photo included in our packet of the conditions of the sidewalk. And I also noted the need for additional accessible spaces, I think up to 5, and bicycle racks. The one thing that caught my eye as potentially not allowable is new gas service, because this is a new construction. So I guess that's a question for staff.
Okay, that's a question for me, thank you. So we do have the new bylaw prohibiting new gas connections for certain types of projects, and you're saying that this is one of those, based on what you believe to be the...
I'm asking because it's new construction.
Yeah. I haven't looked at that, perhaps the planning staff has. We'll look at that, yeah, and get a definitive answer for the next meeting, and maybe you should too.
Yeah, well, we have, and we're in conversations with the building commissioner on that point too. So we understand the bylaw exists, and we're working with your staff on it. Primarily at this point, the building commissioner, because I think that's where the purview would lie. So it's not worked out yet, but we're certainly, we have it on the radar screen.
I guess I would ask, are you familiar with any other facilities that are like this who have used electric heating and cooling? And can you get in touch with them and talk about how they did it and how much it costs and what vendors they used?
So the kind of structure that we're going to be using is something between, I don't know if you're familiar at all with air-supported domes. So I have one of those. So just air is pumped into a fabric structure and it keeps it up. And of course, we have the typical kind of metallic building. This is what's called a tension fabric structure. To do it with anything other than gas is extremely difficult. I will tell you, my other option would have been to put bubbles up. That's what I first looked at. And the R value on my bubble is about maybe like an R3, R4. It absolutely bleeds heat. For me to do the tension fabric, it's more costly, but the savings as far as the fuel costs is about a 5X. So I think we get about an R19. That's nowhere near what Acton is looking for, for the energy code. So, we would look to, have an exception in this case. I will say that, we are looking, and if we can, believe me, I would love to put electric in. I mean, I'm a bit of a tree hugger myself. I drive an electric car, I recycle anything I can. So it is important to me. I'm actually, earlier I kind of heard your discussions about the recs, and yeah, it's important. I completely concur. The difficulty is, again, with these buildings, is to do it electrically in the past would have been pretty much impossible. Now they're just starting to come out with, maybe some options. So if I can do it, I absolutely will. But in the meantime, we would probably look for a variance on that.
David?
Can I just say that's more than a variance? That is a completely separate process. So you have to come up in front of us again, and that's another thing. So.
I guess the other question I would have is, with all the bad press that pickleball is getting with outdoor facilities, I noticed the way you've located looks like your tennis building is closer to the condominiums at Nagog Woods, so I would presume that would act as somewhat of a sound barrier. Is there anything else that you've thought of as far as sound attenuation, even though it is inside the building?
As someone who has a rental unit over at Nagog, and actually sit on that board over there, although, again, that's a whole separate thing, I'm keenly aware of the potential for noise and the clack and all that good stuff, right? And we were all very familiar with that. Thankfully, this stuff is very heavily insulated. I would be doing myself no favors to put anything near that complex that is going to invite people to be hearing, all these sounds and so forth. It's pushed back, I think, far enough. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty sound dead with the amount of insulation that will be used.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any questions from the public? Anything online, Tom? Jim?
So you've seen the memo from the DRB that they wrote up after the Design Review Board, after they met with you. They're not a permitting body, as you know. They gave general praise for the, design, and they made a number of specific suggestions. And I was wondering if you had made a response or had a response to the specific suggestions that they made.
I do not, unless you want to talk about that.
I have not seen the memo, but.
Well, we'll fix that right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can definitely have some comments back. Okay.
I think we've got one member of the public, sir.
Howard Gross, Deerglass Lane in Acton. I'd like to speak in strong support because my kids have all gone through Marcus Lewis programs at Douglas School, and I've done the extension programs. At his previous facility, there were a number of times when I couldn't get a pickleball court. They just weren't there. And have gone to other towns. I have gone and used specifically indoor courts in other towns, and literally standing right outside, as Marcus Lewis said, they're very well insulated. Standing 30 feet outside the building, there is no sound whatsoever. It would be very silly to have an uninsulated building in this environment where, for energy purposes, anything could leak out, including sound. So I would be extraordinarily surprised if that were an issue. But in general, I think it'd be a great facility to have here in Acton, continuing the work that they've done, and I would just be in strong support.
Thank you. Anything you wish to share?
No, sorry. I did, before you closed, I did want to ask if it would be acceptable for us to contact directly with the peer review consultant. We find that's the most efficient way of doing it, but we don't want to be presumptuous because we know they work for you.
Yeah, we can discuss that with the staff
Okay,
afterwards.
great.
So I think we'll probably be looking for a continuance on this, but I'd yield to Jim.
I think that's exactly appropriate. A motion to continue to our August, what is it? 25th meeting at a time that probably Lisa will tell me.
We're looking at 6:30 if that works for you. Does that work for you? 6:30?
It's good, yeah, it's good for us.
Great, at 6:30.
Second.
Moved and seconded to continue the hearing until August 25th at 6:30 PM in this room. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you for coming in. See you next month.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, item 7, approve historic sign marker for 17 Woodbury Lane.
All right, Mr. Chair. The Historic District Commission has identified 2 possible signs to be placed on 17 Woodbury once construction is completed, and asked the board for their opinions, and I'll bring them up right now. So these are in black and white. It's not necessarily the color that'll be printed and installed, but the 2 different options you see in front of you. One is the correct spelling of Asaph Harlan's name, Asaph. And then the second one is a simple circa 1860. So 2 pretty straightforward options, and the HDC is asking which one would be the preference.
Everybody jump at once. Alyssa, you're closest.
Thank you. I have a question about the Historical Commission's thoughts on this, because while the HDC usually identifies the location on the building, the Historical Commission usually decides this. Have they discussed it?
They actually have, oh, should I answer that? Sorry. They have had this discussion at one of their meetings, although really it's the HDC who decides since it's in the district. But they did have input about, and we have a new sign maker, so these look fabulous.
David.
So I second Alyssa's question. And I asked the manager about this earlier. I would like a specific recommendation from the Historical Commission as to what the name on this sign should be. I like the sign with the name. My understanding is that Asaph Harlan owned the house when the first edition was put on. I don't know if that's actually true. That's just what I've heard. If that's what the HC deems is the appropriate name to go on the building, I'm good with that, but I'd like them to say that's the appropriate name to go on the building. If the name should be the people that originally built the building, then I'd like them to say that. So I'd like, I don't even know if my facts is correct that he was the owner when the first edition was added. So I would like that understanding. And I also, however the HDC, I mean, the HDC has to approve everything here, but it is the Historical Commission that usually approves what goes on these signs, and so if the HDC is asking us for our recommendation, I would like to ask the Historical Commission for their recommendation.
And if I could just make it clear, ASAF and ASA are two different people. Yep.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, I didn't have any idea about that. And was this person the owner when the original small building was built?
I don't know the answer to that. Did you?
It's
Yep.
in our packet. May I answer that, Mr. Chair? So it says that it was occupied by Asa Parlin from 1870. In the early 1900s, Asaph Parlin lived here. So seems to me that it might be more appropriate to have Asa Parlin rather than Asaph. So I concur with David that we should get a recommendation.
That sounds good.
I don't feel qualified to make this decision.
And who owned it in 1860?
It should be ASA, but, yeah.
Well, who owned it in 1860? Well, well, from what Alyssa just said, Asaph owned it in 1870, and then Asa owned it after that. Who owned it in 1860? So it seems really odd to me to put 1860 with someone's name who wasn't there in 1860, whether either of those two names. Unless the Historical Commission says, we've looked into it and this is the best thing to do, then I trust them to say that.
So we will put it back in their laps. Yeah.
Yep. We'll pass this one over very quickly. Maybe
Thank
at our
you.
meeting in August, we'll know. Thank you. Okay. Item 8, approve memorandum of agreement between the town of Acton and Primrose School related to sewer connection.
This is a follow-up to a presentation that was made by an attorney representing, and the folks from the Primrose School Corporation who are proposing to put in a daycare facility at the property located on Mass Ave, as listed here, next to the R.J. Gray School. Since, at that meeting, the board discussed, I think you may have been acting as sewer commissioners that night, I don't recall, but discussed the request, discussed some concerns about capacity, and asked me to work with them on a potential MOA that would outline a commitment by both parties, the commitment that they would make is, well, the commitment they were asking for is to increase the sewer betterment units from what's currently part of the property, which is 2, to 8. So they're looking to add 6 sewer betterment units, which is more than they currently are allotted. So it's something the board asked us to negotiate. In exchange for that, they would pay for those sewer betterment units per the current betterment policy, which is 6 times, which would be $180,000 for just the betterment purchase. And then in consideration for this commitment that we're being asked to make, they would also contribute $60,000 towards inflow and infiltration work in the Kelly's Corner area. We do know that there's a bunch of it over there that needs to be worked on this year, so they would contribute towards that. They would also contribute 2 scholarships to Acton residents to go to their facility for 5 years. At the direction that we received was to discuss potential child care scholarship, which they came through on, contribution, which they came through on. The other thing that was asked of us is to address concerns about the historic home on the property. And we weren't able to get them to agree to do anything related to preserving the home. And they actually asked us to support work related to expediting the demo delay process. So that's the agreement before you. It's in the packet. There are some timelines that they have to meet, and so, you know, if the board agrees to this, it wouldn't be a commitment to give them that SBU allocation permanently. It would be if they complete their process within a set amount of time, which is outlined in the document. So happy to answer any questions, and we can put it on the screen if you'd like, but it was in the packet as of Friday.
Thank you. Alyssa?
Thanks. I have in my notes that the SBU assigned to this property was 1, and that they were asking for an increase to 7. So I'm confused why it's now 2 to 8. Are there a significant number of bedrooms in that house?
You know, when I was just making notes to myself about that, and I made the same question, but the net increase is 6 that we're asking, or that they're asking for is an increase of 6. So we certainly will double check the math, but the numbers of increase is the same.
Okay, because if they used the 1 as the calculation for how many more they would need to get to 2,100 gallons per day, then it would make a big difference. If it was 2, there might be fewer. I don't know. I definitely want to understand the math on that. And can I continue? So I do want to say that I object to the phrase in the MOA, the town agrees to support its request for a reduction in the demo delay period. I think that that would be not a good precedent to set. I know that we don't have the authority to do that. That authority for administering Chapter N lies with the Historical Commission, but I would not want to even indicate that this board agrees to support that request, because that opens up a precedent to any entity in the future doing the same thing. There's a very specific requirement for applicants to follow in order for the Historical Commission to reduce that. And the words have to do with bona fide, continuous effort for 6 months to either find an owner or adjust the plans. And beyond objecting to that being in the MOA and not wanting to sign it with it in there, I'm very disappointed that there's no consideration. I'm assuming that the town staff made an effort and town council made an effort to get them to agree to keep that building. But I understand that their presentation to the Historical Commission, they indicated that the desire to demolish that home had to do with their site plan. You know, their preferable site plan, or easier or less costly or whatever. And I was actually hoping that they would be here tonight so I could read them the vision statement from Acton's comprehensive community plan. And even though they're not here, I'm going to go ahead and read it. So our Acton 2020 plan, some people call it a master plan, has a vision statement. Let us plan so that in the future, Acton has retained its uniqueness by preserving its rural and historic characteristics with ample open fields and meadows, tree-lined roads with meandering sidewalks, ponds, farms, wooded areas, stone walls, and beautiful renovated historic buildings. And I appreciate, Dean, you have referred to the community plan as sort of like the Bible. Anybody can find a goal or a strategy, a piece of it to support what it is that they want, and I agree with that, but the vision statement is very clear, and that is the community's priority, and I feel like being a good community member demands respect for the community's values. So I would encourage the applicant to pursue an architectural design study that reaches a solution that retains the whole building, or at least the facade, and incorporates it into the plans, or complete some sort of structural analysis and cost analysis to show why that is not feasible. And Dean, you also mentioned at our last meeting, or maybe it was in the agenda-setting meeting about, or both, the cost the higher cost of incorporating this building into the center. One of the examples that I know of here in town is the infant toddler center on Central Street. So I did a little bit of research into Primrose. This is a national corporate entity. They have 500 centers in 33 states. On their website, it's a franchise model. So on their website, they note the potential for franchisees, I don't know how to pronounce that, and their ability to bring in revenue. And sorry, my notes are pretty lengthy, so I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Anyway, in 2022, the company as a whole surpassed $1 billion in profit. They have a tax-exempt, nonprofit charitable arm that was formed in 2005, and they have, in those 20 years, donated $5.5 million to underserved children. All right, I cannot find it right now, but I believe that they estimate that a franchisee can make a profit of about $600,000 a year. So I think it would be I would feel very differently if it was an independent center like the Infant Toddler Center, and they came to us and said, this really is cost prohibitive, this, undermines the viability of our business plan. So I would be inclined to hold a firm line with saving this historic home and incorporating it into their plans. We definitely need childcare centers in Acton. This is definitely a need, but if there's so many site constraints with the topography and the presence of this home, there are potentially other locations in town that we can help direct them to.
Thank you. Let me just make one comment. I support Alyssa in this. As far as objection to the segment here on demolition delay, I think the rest of the MOA I don't have a problem with. But I think a decent effort should be made to preserve that building. The example I would use would not be Infant Toddler Center, because that building that they have not been able to properly maintain has become a real problem for ITC. And they've actually come and looked for substantial amounts of funding from CPC to fix it up, and have not been successful with that request. But I think the example that I would use as far as an adaptive reuse of buildings is just look further down Mass Ave to Village Works and the great efforts that they did to preserve some of those buildings and find adaptive reuses for them. And I don't think that Matthias had pockets that are as deep as Primrose. So I think that would be one segment that I would have a problem with. I think the rest of it I don't have a problem with. But I'll see if comments from my other colleagues. Fran?
I got the feeling from the hearing that, at the HC, that there was no interest in preserving 457 because of what Alyssa stated, because they are a cookie cutter organization, and I don't get the feeling that they'll preserve that. There was a project before this project, I don't know, 40-unit housing that did incorporate the building into offices, which should be encouraged. I think preserving the building is important.
It's kind of an iconic structure from my point of view. David?
So a few things. This is just from memory, and I could be wrong. I think a sewer betterment unit assumes 330 gallons per day. And the way they were computed at the time was how many single-family dwellings you could put on the parcel, right? So you could have an empty parcel that in R2 was
How many gallons?
I think 330, but I could check that for you. It's it's in the range of 400 plus and minus. It's definitely in the range of 400 plus or minus. But anyway, the sewer betterment units were computed by how many you could put. So if you had 2 acres where you could put 4 houses, you would be charged 4 sewer betterment units, even if the lot was empty. Yeah.
So my property is 1.8 acres, and we had 1 sewer betterment unit assigned based on the number of bedrooms that we had in the house. So I wasn't in Acton when all of that was calculated. We just got hit with it when we bought the house, but I'm curious about that.
So that's correct, right? It's a little bit more complicated than what I said. What I said was correct if the lot was empty. If the lot was not empty, there was some determination made whether it was in effect a single-family lot with 1 house on it, and that was it, and you get 1 sewer betterment unit, or if it was effectively 2 parcels or 3 parcels where more houses could be put. There was a determination made at the time. It's a little bit.
This house is there.
Right. So if the use changes, that's what the privilege fee is for. So the privilege fee is the difference between, however they calculated the sewer betterment units, whether they calculated 1 or 2 at the time. I mean, that's in the town records. We can tell what they paid for. And if they need 7 or 8, whatever it is, you subtract those 2 and you get the number of additional units, and you multiply that by our privilege fees that we set a couple of years ago to get that. And there's different way of computing that for a commercial establishment versus a residence. Residence is based on the bedrooms. Obviously, there's no bedrooms here. And it's completely different for a restaurant, for a school, for a tennis club. You know, there are different ways of computing it. Anyway, and engineering knows how to do that. So that's the first thing. I agree with the others who've mentioned that the demo delay bylaw thing doesn't belong here, especially since this is oriented towards wastewater capacity. It may not be appropriate at all, but it certainly, in my mind, is not appropriate to this document. I will say, however, that the demo delay was meant to give us time to encourage people to reuse our historic buildings. And I think we should do that. I will say, however, that in some cases, it is extremely difficult to do, right? As we know with 17 Woodbury, what we came out with was something, a project that cost over $1 million, where the result was we couldn't have any money to insulate the house, right? Or provide the space we were going to put in there. It is hugely expensive to reuse. I mean, the building would have to be gutted and then brought up to code, right? It would have to have sprinklers installed in it because it's a commercial, but just as one example, that's just one little example. It is not going to be in the inside of a historic building at all. Still, it might be worth saving, but I would hate to have our demo delay bylaw used in a punitive fashion, right? We need to, in my mind, strike this balance between encouraging them to take a look, getting them really to take an honest look, and to come back with what that means to their project. Not just say, oh, we can't do it that way. I would like more detail that we can't do it that way. And I know I'm not the decider here, but I would hate to see the Historical Commission or the town as a whole say, well, that's not the answer we wanted, so we're going to delay you another year just because. So I guess I'm kind of in between. I hope that we can make some progress here, but that the demo delay intent was to provide some, motivation for, to encourage a developer to consider reusing a historic structure. But it's undoubtedly going to be more expensive for them.
So the demo delay is 18 months. There is no additional time on or?
No, I know, but delaying, so suppose it takes them a half a year to try to figure out if they can incorporate it, and then an additional year, they've already decided they can't do it. I think that's wrong if we just hold on to it, right? We need to get an honest response back, and I don't mean something that's dismissive, right? But I'm looking for an honest dialogue back and forth. And also, I want to recognize, and Alyssa said that we need daycare in town. We need businesses, right? We cannot, some people talk about that we don't have a large enough percentage of business. You're not going to we can't change our percentage of business hugely, but because we're pretty much built out, any business is going to replace single-family houses, right? And we have to recognize that. And this is satisfies a need to our residents and will supply, pay commercial taxes. I agree with Alyssa that this is bad. It sets a bad precedent to put this in here, but I also would say that it sets a bad precedent just to do the demo delay in a punitive fashion. You didn't do what we wanted, so we're going to delay you another year and a half, so that that you have to do what you want to do. You can't do what you want to do.
Go ahead, Fran.
It's not a punitive thing, it's just something that the HC has established and what they abide by, and it's precedent. Everyone has the same demo delay.
No, it's established by our bylaws, not by the HC. The HC is the implementing body.
Right.
And to me, I'm not saying that they adjust the time.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if, let's say in 6 months out of that year and a half, Primrose provides an analysis back that says it really is not practical to build a childcare center out of that old house. And if they've done a reasonable job with that, we should let them go. If we delay them another year just out of, we didn't want that house to go, then I think that's wrong.
And if I could just add, it's just, how do we find the right buyer for that parcel, So.
Well, we can't. It's the private property.
It is. But,
right, so we don't direct, we can just react to what's there.
But there is something charming on the property.
I think everybody's expressed their opinion. I think the majority of us agree that having this particular segment in this memorandum of agreement is not appropriate. So I suggest that we ask the town manager to go back and explain this to them. I don't want to get in a situation where the select board is lobbying in favor of one particular developer and beating up on the historical commission. I mean, I think Primrose, if they're that big a corporation, they can probably figure it out that they might have to come up with a different plan. Or they might have to, just properly document that the building really is not something that can be saved, and they should be able to bring that to the historical commission. And I think we need to rely on the historical commission to read those documents, if they're produced, and take the proper action. But I don't know as we've got a whole lot more to talk about as far as this one particular section. We've all got our opinions on the viability of that building, and I'm glad Primrose might own it and not the town of Acton. Are there any other segments of this memorandum of agreement that folks have particular thoughts on? Jim?
So I'm just trying to play out what happens. So we direct the town manager to go back to Primrose and say, board didn't go for, the demolition delay bylaw part. What can we do? And so they will be looking for ways to reduce costs. They can't do much about the sewer betterment fees, because that's what they cost. All they can really do is to remove the scholarship part. We're down to 2 children for 5 years. Maybe they'd say 1 child for 2 years or something. They will presumably come back with some, if they think it's workable at all, they will come back with some counter offer. So I guess that's an okay scenario for me. So I'm still okay with the notion of asking the town manager to go back to them and see what can be worked out, starting with, removing that part.
Alyssa?
Thank you. I remember, Jim, you saying that this is the point at which we have leverage. I do not want to give that leverage away. More than one of us asked for the building to be saved. The Historical Commission made very clear that the demolition would be detrimental to our historical heritage. More than one of us also suggested a different driveway setup, which I understand is not part of this MOA. But if they're arguing, their engineer is arguing with the Historical Commission that this is our optimal site plan and the house is in the way, that tells me that they're not considering rearranging the site plan as was suggested. I brought up the fact that the playground was right next to the traffic and the exhaust of the cars. I can't remember who else suggested that the driveway, they talked to the schools and consider that the driveway be connected to the school driveway. I mean, there's Prospect right across the street, intersecting with Mass Ave. Then there's the driveway from the junior high, where hundreds of cars and school buses come in and out during the morning, and then a driveway right next to it for a 200-spot daycare center during the morning. Imagine somebody leaving the daycare center after dropping off their child and wanting to turn left on Mass Ave, and a school bus or a parent dropping their kid off at Parker Damon or the junior high and wanting to turn right on Mass Ave. I don't know what the distance is between those 2 driveways, but this is not well thought out. I looked at lots of photos of centers all around the country, and Fran, you're right, they are cookie cutter. There's this one-room schoolhouse facade with a cupola and a rooster weather vane on top. Their logo is a rooster weather vane. So this just tells me that they're not in a place right now to work with the community that they want to enter into and be part of, and figure out how to provide what we're asking for to make a better plan for the town. It's a really visible location. There's a lot of traffic there. And it's really important to get it right. And if we sign this MOU, what's it called? Then I feel like we've lost that because we've lost the leverage because the site plan special permit is something that we can't say no to.
Jim?
I'm certainly not proposing we sign this. I'm proposing that we go back to them, say this section can't be there, and then see what happens next. I think that I agree still with what you reported that I said, that we have this moment of leverage, especially about the scholarships. But I think the moment of leverage about the layout is going to be in site plan. So I'm okay with letting that go for now. Although we do have an honest difference about the appropriateness or the inappropriateness of having that thing there. Yeah, so it's possible they'll just go away.
All right, I look to, Fran?
Ask a question that has nothing. Ask a question that has nothing to do with them. And I think it's a question for you. Do they actually own the parcel yet?
I don't know.
I don't think
I don't
that
believe they do.
Yeah, I don't think they do either. So I think this is fact find. Yeah, common ground. That is someone else. So they're not actual owners of the parcel yet. So not that I'm just.
John, do you think you've got sufficient input from us?
Well, I do, but I don't, I think I heard from a majority of the board, and I didn't count how much more than that, that preserving the house is a critical thing for me to try to do, and I don't think that's something that I can do in a sewer MOA. So I'm not sure what you're asking me to do.
Well, let me summarize it from my point of view. I think that my preference, and I think the preference of the majority, would be, it'd be nice to save the building. Separate from that, I don't think that the select board should be in a position to act as a lobbying arm for Primrose against our historical commission. I would be willing to sign this agreement if it just didn't have the demolition delay segment in it, and let them fight their own battles with the historical commission. That's just my personal point of view. If I felt strongly enough about it, I might go to the historical commission as a resident and a descendant of one of the previous owners of the house and say, I think it should be preserved, but that would be totally separate from my position here on the board. I just object to that one paragraph in the MOA. The rest of it, I'm fine with. I'll defer to my colleagues.
So that paragraph, I'm fairly confident that we could get that paragraph out of there, but I guess what I was saying is that doesn't, I feel like I'm being asked to do more than that. And so that's where I need to just get some clarification. Because we can go back on the 25th and clean that up, fix the math, and if I'm still not getting what's needed, I think this is an organization that's proposing to reuse land to provide economic development, meeting a need that we've heard. We even appropriate money at town meeting to help with childcare because it's such a problem for people in this community. So having more choices, certainly, this is, I think, a higher end choice, but having more choices creates more childcare, which I think is a need. So from an economic development standpoint, I want to do what's best to help move things forward. From a historic preservation standpoint, I fully support doing that. I just don't know that those two things align in this particular project.
Alyssa?
In terms of the math, another thing that I would like to see, and this is actually more on point with what we should be discussing in terms of the sewer units, I don't feel that I have enough information to make a decision about dedicating what remains of the capacity in the wastewater system. Because the last memo that we received from Woodard and Curran, and I think it was in March, and I think it was 10,000 gallons. And there are still 280 parcels in the district that are not connected yet. So I'd like to see, 2,500 gallons per day for this is, a quarter of that remaining 10,000. So I'd like to have an update. It's very challenging because Jack Troidel is no longer with us, Chin Ray is no longer with us, but if we could get an estimate, and maybe it's not possible in the time, but the I&I, how many gallons that's gonna add back into the system, the impact of the equalization tank, and I know that, we have to wait for the design of that and DEP to weigh in, but, 6 sewer units doesn't seem like a lot. And I definitely feel it's valuable to get the donation for I&I. That adds, value. With the privilege fee adds value to the district. But that number of 280 parcels not yet connected, I'd like to know that with some level of confidence that is going to be mitigated through our plans for I&I reduction and the equalization tank.
So the Woodard and Curran, the engineers that we still have that we're working with at Woodard and Curran, were at the last time this was discussed, and I think they spoke to the availability of capacity. I mean, to your point, the 200-plus parcels that are still in the district that haven't connected, there's one that could connect tomorrow that would wipe out the entire thing. So it's really, I don't think we can make decisions based on that. It's about what's available, what's a community priority, what we have space for now, and I mean, we're already over max if we need to meet everyone's needs that's in the district. And I just think there's an acknowledged need that we need expanded sewer capacity. We've been working pretty hard over the last 10 years to try to find it. Maybe with a new engineer team in, maybe we'll have some new ideas and find some new ways to do it. I think the technology that we're advancing for I&I and that inflow tank is going to give us room, but it's not going to solve all of our problems. So it's still a need that needs to be addressed. In the meantime, there are projects that will be proposed, not just this one, but there may be more, that the select board or sewer commissioners, whichever role you're in, will have to make decisions on whether it makes sense given what we know. And I think, given what we know, we have capacity for this 2,500 gallons per day, and we'll double check that number. But we have capacity for it now. We'll circle back with the engineering team before the 25th, though, see if there's anything else they can give us.
David?
So I just want to make it clear that I was not trying to step on the Historical Commission's responsibilities. I was just stating that a hope that we were not using the demo delay in an inappropriate fashion. So we can set that aside. In general, state law, the precedent has been set that you can't really save sewer capacity for somebody else. You can't not serve one customer. There are areas that we can do that when we have to expand the district, but in general, we can't. The state law is definitely case law has definitely leaned towards not saving capacity for somebody in the future. It is absolutely true that we could not serve everybody in the district right now. And we would probably have to refund the betterment units of people who wanted to connect after we were full. But in the meantime, it's better for the environment and everything else if every last gallon of that capacity is used for processing our wastewater, since that's the best way to process our wastewater. Finally, I would recommend, and just in, to follow up on the concerns expressed by Alyssa and others in this, that if we're mostly in agreement to sign the wastewater, this wastewater MOA, that we just say, we just like to see your updated plan first. And I think that's a reasonable request, right? They made a preliminary presentation to us. Some of us talked about various things that we thought were problems. We just like to hear back before we sign on the dotted line here, what the updated plan is. As a kind of a lead into the special permit hearing. I don't think that's unreasonable myself. And those things can be done at the same time. So we can say that we'd like to negotiate out the demo delay thing. I think we're 100%, from what I've heard, 100% in agreement that none of us like that in there. And just ask them to see, what changes have you made since the last time we saw your plans? And I think that's reasonable.
I just have one quick question. Are we in the habit of signing these agreements if the owner doesn't own the property? I just was curious if that's part of the process.
I mean, securing ownership would be one of the conditions that, they wouldn't be able to take that sewer ticket and use it somewhere else. It would be based on the use of this property. So if they don't secure ownership, it would just go away. But I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know that if we've done this before, or maybe someone remembers differently.
So Powder Mill property has changed ownership twice since we approved their, and they have to assemble all these permits, and you can't condition everything on everything else because you won't be able to do anything. The good thing that's in this one that actually was not in the Powder Mill one is this has an expiration in it. The one for Powder Mill, we just told them we'd set aside capacity for them, and we didn't say, as long as you start or is complete or something construction by a particular date. This one has a 3-year expiration in it.
Last comment, Alyssa.
Sorry, Dean, thank you. If we are going back to the engineering team, I looked at Wilmac's guidance for the water district potential expansion, like what factors, criteria that they would use to decide whether to add, somebody from another town, to try and get a handle on this. So I think in addition to, the donation of the funds for the I&I work and the privilege fee, I guess I would want to find out if there's any other benefits to the district. For instance, additional flow. Does that, 2,500 gallons per day help the operation of the wastewater treatment plant? Spreading the fixed costs over a greater number of ratepayers, is that a benefit? Because I'd really like to look at those benefits to understand that this is the right decision for the district as a sewer commissioner. And also if there's any cost impact to current ratepayers, and if the privilege fee that we're charging, I think it does, but just to make sure that that is adequately addressing any accrued costs from this project.
I think those are reasonable questions, but I think it's outside the scope of this MOA. I mean,
well, the MOA would approve giving away an additional 6 sewer units, and I feel like that's expanding the district in a sense, even though it's not a new parcel, it's expanding use. So I feel like that decision, I'm pretty confident that there is benefit there in addition to the 60,000 donation and the 180,000 privilege fee. But I feel like there's also, if I'm thinking of the ratepayer as a sewer commissioner, does this benefit the district? Because I think in previous conversations about expansion, way back, Spencer Tuttle Flint, the West Acton expansion, that it was argued by the operators of the treatment plant that it would benefit the operation to have more effluent coming in. Sorry, not influent, more wastewater coming into the plant. Like more fluids in a system is good for operation.
All right, we'll move on. I don't envy you, John, but I never do, so. Item 9, finalize India Participation Day celebration on August 3rd. Discuss participation and approve proclamation. I think we've all read the proclamations in our packet. I think it's pretty similar to the ones we've agreed to in the past. We do have our flag-raising policy that was written actually in response to their first request some years ago. I don't know, there's a lot more to talk about other than I personally will not be in town that day, but should have somebody from the select board that would like to. Okay, we've got at least two.
I'm not volunteering. It says the day and time are Saturday, August 3rd, but Saturday is August 2nd. So I would like to clear that up. Is it Saturday or is it Sunday?
Okay,
Sorry.
August 2nd. Do we,
The proclamation says 3rd.
But it also says Saturday.
So it's probably Sunday.
well,
I just want to apologize for not noticing this before the meeting, and I could have sorted that out with staff.
Would somebody care to make a motion to approve this proclamation edited as necessary?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the edited as necessary proclamation. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Next, as far as a designee or a delegate who would like to make the proclamation and coordinate with the organizers.
I would love to do that, but I'm available on Sunday, not Saturday. So I'm really hoping that it's Sunday. I couldn't go last year, so I'm hoping I can go this year.
I will be out of town both days.
Coordinate with David. I was texting Zana.
Okay, Fran, it's all yours. Thank you very much.
I think in the past, they've had two select board members, one who pulled the flag and one who read the proclamation.
I can go if it's on Sunday.
I've been asked to pass over item 10. Item 11, approve amended easement with the Discovery Museums, Inc., 177 and 183 Main Street.
This is an item that was brought to the board earlier in the summer and brought it back tonight with a little more detail in the packet for your information. This is something that Town Council had been working with Council for Discovery Museum for a while, and it's seen as cleaning up something more than substantially changing things, but we need to make sure the board is comfortable with it. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them.
Questions from my colleagues? I don't think we have any questions. I think I'd be ready to entertain a motion.
I move to approve the amended easement with the Discovery Museums, Inc., 177 and 183 Main Street.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the amended easement. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Approved. Item 12, Jim.
Did we skip 10? Or was I check out for a minute? Yep.
We're not doing 10.
Okay, sorry.
Let's see. Oh, look, you've got the signs up there. That's so good. Okay. I was gonna say I could do this at the late August meeting if that's better, but if people have the patience.
Take a whole 5 minutes, Jim.
Okay. Let me get my notes. But in the meantime, look at those signs. That's what we're talking about. Those monuments are examples of what we've been finding, taking pictures of and painting. You'll see down there in the second row, you'll see Dean actually painting monuments. And you'll see their different sizes and shapes and ages. The newest one is in the upper right. That's one from Concord that was put up in 2017. The little diagonal line on the top is actually the direction of the actual boundary between Concord and Acton. What else would I point out on some of these pictures? Let's go from left to right. So the one on the far left is a monument that's in the middle of the woods because there used to be a road there. There was a reference, the best reference we have to where these monuments are is a 1904 book that takes about 8 local towns and describes exactly where all their monuments are. And this one was described as being on Parmenter Road, Parmenter. And there is no more Parmenter Road except for a tiny little section in Maynard. But luckily, the Historical Society was able to find me some old Middlesex County maps that showed Parmenter Road coming up through the W.R. Grace site, crossing the train tracks. And this is a little thing that's just north of the tracks near the Concord border. The second picture, which you'll notice is not a monument, is where the monument was at the powder mill project. We haven't approached yet the developers via the planning department to say, hey, you marked where the monument was. Does that mean like you have the monument somewhere and you're going to put it back at some point? So we should verify that. The next 3 pictures on the bottom row are monuments in various levels of decay and at various angles and partly buried. One of the questions that we'll have for you guys is, not to make a decision yet, but just to get a sense of the board, is whether repairing those, putting them in their right location and their right position, might be a worthy project, for example, for a CPA project. The good news there is that the law, at least, would give us that would give the other towns the responsibility for half of that cost. I think that's all from the pictures that I need to talk about. Then I would look at my notes somewhere in here. Okay. So just as a reminder, we're doing this partly because it's the law, but the main reason we're doing it is because we're gathering and sharing this information that has historical interest and promotes pride and knowledge about the town. For the first part of the goal, there'll be a formal written report that goes to our adjoining towns, to the clerk and to DocuShare. For the second part, we're still figuring out how to get the word out, so I'd be happy to have any ideas about how to do that. We were thinking maybe a video presentation that can go out on ActonTV, where, as you can see, we're taking plenty of pictures, and we're uncovering some questions and issues as we go. So there are some monument locations where it just seems they're just missing. from places where they used to be. And the question is, do we want to replace those or not? I've already asked you about, do we want to restore monuments that are tipped? And another question is, we found roads that are newer, like, newer than 1915, where roads cross boundaries and where there are no monuments, and we think there have never been monuments there. This would be strict adherence to the letter of the law, but Dean and I have been inclined against doing that, seeing the monument work as more about historical preservation. We've heard from town council that that's a fine way to proceed because of the total absence of enforcement. And even if they did choose to enforce, the fine is $10 for a select board member that, doesn't participate in this process. And I'm happy to pay that fee out of my salary if we get fined. The last question we had was, do we want to change our way of marking the monuments? Both Dean and I have felt some discomfort that we're taking these historically significant markers, going there with some, black Rust-Oleum paint and writing all over them. And maybe there's a way of marking, indicating our presence there that doesn't take up so much room. You'll see, for example, the third one from the left on the top row, that's Sudbury, who on the one hand have done a really excellent job of doing this every 5 years. They're the only town around here that has done that. 2000, 2005, 2015 to 2020. Oh, they missed 2010, never mind. But on the other hand, to do that, they also whitewashed the entire front of their side of the monument, which lost any, historical information from before then, which seems a shame. So that's it. There might be reactions or thoughts from the board on, the sort of policy issues about where we go from here, or just any questions or comments.
Questions from...
Was it fun? It looks like you had fun.
Oh, it's been a blast, yes. This is my outdoor person and my nerd person all coming together. It's great.
Thank you for doing that.
Dina, what would you say? Have you had fun?
I done all that marking and have not got poison ivy yet, so that's a good thing. Alyssa?
I would just like to express my gratitude to both of you and every volunteer who's accompanied you or covered this in the newspaper. I just so much appreciate this, and I love that you're thinking about questions like, is this a good idea to cover them up with black oil-based paint? And should we add monuments where there are new streets? And should we repair or realign them with CPA funding? So I think I'm in alignment with your, get it, alignment, with your thoughts that new markers for new roads, not such a great idea, but straightening and repairing them, sharing the cost with other towns, I'm on board with that. And I also concur that white paint on Sudbury's is not good. So again, thank you. I'm so glad that this project is happening.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, thank you for doing this. This is really great. Are you recording the coordinates of each monument?
We are recording approximate coordinates that I can get from my phone, but we also have an ongoing conversation with town about bringing out the GIS folks to get really accurate coordinates.
Okay. More to come. I think we might be going out as soon as Thursday.
Yeah, I should mention that in case anybody's free Thursday between 9 and 12:30. We'll be out there with probably members of the Select Board of Maynard, maybe Stowe, and maybe a brief visit from Chin from Sudbury, who's now the director of the DPW and might come out. And, we have one corner in common with Sudbury, and we're going to start there.
Thank you. Moving ahead to item 13, on the same theme of good fences make good neighbors. Alyssa and I had the opportunity to meet with two members of the Maynard Select Board a week or so ago. They had reached out to me. Interesting to have a conversation and look to see if there are ways that our two towns could collaborate in some fashion. And we kicked around a lot of ideas, and I don't want to limit your thoughts by telling you what we discussed. But you think about this, Acton and all of our surrounding towns all provide the same sorts of services. It's, emergency dispatch, transportation, health, public works, whatever, senior services. And it's always a good opportunity to try to think of ways that we could save some money and do things more efficiently. The town manager, our town manager, has led the way with a lot of interesting collaborations. Our collaboration with our VSO between Acton and Boxborough, our collaboration with Littleton, with our electrical inspector. So there's a lot of opportunities to do these things. It's sort of thinking outside the box. Always a good time to think about this. Now is probably a better time than usual because I suggest that any communities in these blue states are probably going to be hard-pressed to see any federal money for the next few years. The budgets are just going to get worse, so if there's ways that we can act regionally to provide services to our constituents, it's probably worthwhile thinking about. So I'll let Alyssa make comments if she wishes. We had this conversation, we talked for about an hour and a half, and what came out of it was interest on the part of at least those two members of the board, the Select Board in Maynard, to have a meeting between the two boards in an open, it would have to be an agenda item, it would have to be in an open session. I was kind of thinking about an evening meeting or a Saturday morning meeting up here or some other venue, probably in October, early November, or whatever time could be worked out. And if my colleagues here are interested in doing that, I'd kind of ask the town manager to speak with Greg Johnson, his opposite number is the town administrator in Maynard, to see if you could work out the logistics behind that sort of a meeting. Alyssa, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you. So it was fun. Maybe not as much fun as perambulating, but it was a really interesting conversation, learning the challenges that the Maynard Select Board and the town are, they're facing are very similar to what Acton faces, and learning some history about relationship between the towns. So I think that the conversation with the two boards all together would be a really rich one. And Dean mentioned the collaboration that we already do with staff, sharing staff. And I also am recalling that somebody from the Littleton Select Board reached out to one of our energy coaches, Jim, I think, to get some insight. Maybe they might create such a program. I was contacted by a Concord Select Board member asking, I know you do something with the schools and bias incident reporting. What does the town do? So I think just sharing information among Select Board members would take it to another level.
So, if we could get a show of thumbs, if there's anybody interested in meeting with the folks in Maynard at some point this fall? All five.
With Liz Rust's comment tonight in, Powder Mill getting humans living there, that, I never thought of that. And that's going to be a lot of bodies right on the Maynard border. So collaboration's always good, yeah.
We have there has been this regional planning operation going on, looking at the Powder Mill corridor between Maynard and Acton already, and that was a result of what came out of that meeting was when one of the select board members in Maynard reached out to me and initiated the conversation, so. John, you care to reach out to Greg and see if there's some time that we could all get together?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually talked to him on Thursday. I was with him for a little while, and he's excited. You know, as you mentioned, we've worked together on a few things informally, but having a big meeting of the board sounds like a lot of fun. Do you envision it as a workshop or a public meeting where there'd be public comments also?
I think it would be most beneficial if we did a workshop. I think with 10 select board members all at the same table, I don't think there's enough oxygen left in the room for the public to speak. So I think, at least initially, we should just do it as a workshop. Certainly, the public would be welcome to observe. Probably ActonTV and whatever the cable TV connection is over in Maynard could broadcast it. And, you know, as it advances, I'm sure that, you know, members of the public in both towns will be very interested, and some of them somewhat concerned by the fact that we're having this conversation. There is history between Maynard and Acton, which Alyssa pointed out to me occurred when she was in junior high school, so it's old history, but there's some old codgers still around that remember all that stuff, so me being one of them. Thank you, John. All right, David.
Just the quickest comment is we have had a pretty successful Powder Mill corridor project with Maynard. So I was here for the disappointing things in the past, but we've had recent successes, so.
We talked about that.
Good.
Hey, consent agenda. I'll read through them. I know that there's going to be a bunch of holes, so I will accept that. Item 14, approved meeting minutes, June 9th and June 16th, 2025. Item 15, approved 42 volunteer board and committee reappointments as listed in the packet.
Hold.
Item 16, approved board or committee appointments with terms to end on June 30th, 2028.
Hold. Sorry.
No, it's good. More the merrier.
Item 17, appoint Robert Sekula as an associate member of the Transportation Advisory Committee with a term to end on June 30th, 2026. Item 18, accept gifts to support the 2025 Summer Concert Series and special events from Acton Lions Club for $500, McGovern Auto Group for $3,000, Pedal Power and Ski for $250, Powder Mill Animal Hospital for $500, Renewable by Anderson for $1,000, Teamwork Sports Performance for $500. Item 19, approve one-day malt and wine license applications for Swiss Society of Boston at Narrow Park Pavilion on August 3rd, 2025. James Wilson, Narrow Park Bathhouse Pavilion, September 13th, 2025. Acton Democratic Town Committee at Narrow Park on September 28th, 2025. Damon Kung at Narrow Park on October 11th, 2025. Item 20, approve use of town streets for American Diabetes Association's 2025 Tour de Cure, Sunday, August 17th, 2025. Item 21, approve use of town streets for 2025 Ride to Defeat ALS, September 20th, 2025. 22, notification of approval of one-day malt and wine license for Linda Vecchiarello at Narrow Park Pavilion, Picnic Pavilion, on July 17th, 2025. And 23, notification of approval of a one-day all-alcohol beverage license for Carol Barron at Narrow Park Picnic Pavilion on July 20th, 2025. Item 24, notification of approval of filming and photography license for Pointing Fingers at the Public Safety Facility on July 14th and 15th, 2025.
Hold.
Item 25, accept donation of $16,220 from Mark Schulman towards the sidewalk fund stated in the planning board decision PB 24-02 Fieldstone Way /9 Wincliffe, condition number 3.3.4. 26, approve amended intermunicipal agreement with Regional Housing Service Office. So, it looks like I would accept a vote on items 14, items 18 through 23 inclusive, items 25 and 26.
I move to approve those items.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we'll go back to the held items. Item 15. Jim?
This has been quite an adventure, trying to get these reappointments and appointments correct. I'd say I just want to deepen my respect for Lisa, who does this routinely every year. For some reason, I raised my hand this year and said I would help straighten stuff out. So let's see. On the last version of the reappointment list that I saw, there were a couple of things to correct and a couple of things to discuss. The Bruce Brockman on the Land Stewardship Committee should be a full member, not an associate member. Lee's Stunts on the Community Preservation Committee should be associate, not full. The Council on Aging, Emmy Azar, should actually be removed from the reappointment list because it's going to be an appointment, because we are moving her from associate to full, but that's for the next item. But we would at least remove it from the reappointments. I think those are all the changes. Then the questions were about the rest of the other CPC assignments. And we got confusingly slightly at odds responses from the town clerk and from the planning department on these questions. But I'll tell you what I recommend. So this is, for example, about the two that I need the most clarity about are Peter Berry as an AHA rep and James Coleman as the CONSCOM rep. And it's clear to everyone that it is the AHA and the CONSCOM, respectively, who get to select the names. But what's not clear is who actually appoints them to a particular term. In this case, they both finished a 3-year term, and they both expressed an interest in being reappointed for another 3 years. And, everyone's enthusiastic about that idea, but it's unclear whether it's the select board or the AHA and CONSCOM who actually do those appointments. The clerk gave the clearest response and said, yes, the select board is the one that needs to do the actual reappointment. So you should do that. And if those names change, those committees will tell you that, take out James Coleman's name and put in this other name. The planning response was, no, it's actually those respective bodies that do the appointing. So what I would recommend for tonight is that we go ahead and reappoint Peter Berry and James Coleman to additional 3-year terms as listed in the reappointments, but that we continue to pursue this question in case we need to instruct the AHA and Conscom to do these reappointments. And on a related note, Dean is our liaison to the CPC and a member of the CPC. We kind of already did that at our liaison discussion where we agreed that Dean would continue. But did that mean that we were then appointing him for 3 additional years? I don't know. It seems like we weren't. So it seems wise to give him an additional three years as the select board rep on the CPC, and then any year we want, we can change that. That's what I propose we do, but there might be questions or comments about, especially about the CPC stuff.
David.
Thank you for all that work. I agree with everything you've said. Just one piece of at least my understanding of the situations like with the CPC, being liaison and being a member are different, right? And so I used to, for example, be a member of the DEIC. I'm no longer a member, but I'm still the liaison. So Dean is a member and a liaison, right? And so it would be odd, but next year he could be a member and we appoint another one of us as liaison, right? So anyway, so I think those are 2 separate orthogonal things.
Okay, well, that's the way it's written in the current reappointment list, so that's good.
Alyssa.
So I'm looking at the town charter, and in our appointment powers, it does not list the Community Preservation Committee. So that might be why planning says it's AHA and Conscom. And also, I think, but I had a lot of trouble with my email at the beginning of July, that I emailed you that we can promote Dave Bocuti to full from associate, but that his term will stay the same so that we don't have 3 members expiring. So I don't know if that needs to be done at a future meeting rather than this meeting because it wasn't in the packet, but it sounds like we're making a lot of changes here, so maybe it's copacetic.
That was just a clerical error on my part. You did actually send that to me, and I've neglected to put it on the list. Yeah. My preference would be to do that at a future meeting, if that's okay with you. Okay, thank you. So I guess I would move to accept the reappointments as listed, except for changing Bruce Rockman from full to associate, Lee Stuntz changed from associate to full, and to remove the Emmy Azar reappointment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Item 16.
Okay. Yes. Here's the ones I know about. To add, appoint Emmy Azar as a full member of the Council on Aging with a term to expire June 30th, 2028. That's a change from associate to full. Remove Barry Serenich as
I just wanted to hold him out until our next meeting.
Yeah.
They're going to meet, the board is going to meet Barry and.
Great.
Yeah.
So for now, we wouldn't be taking Barry Serenich in, but hopefully we will be very soon. Those are the only 2 changes I know about on the appointment list for number 16.
Okay, accept a motion.
I move to approve consent item 16 as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, approved. Item 17.
This is just a typo. Secular is secular, SEKULER. So I would propose we accept item 17 with a correction in spelling.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, approved. And item 20.
Just a brief comment on these. I think what might be better next year, if we can work out a system where a board member, such as the liaison to the VCC, has permission to work more closely with the person who usually handles appointments and reappointments, that would be Lisa, so that we can, have fewer problems. Some of that, so there were some mistakes getting from my version of the list to a reformatted version of the list. There were some mistakes that came in because the master committee list was a little bit out of date. Those were the two main sources of errors. And then there were also some that were the VCC, when Greg wrote to us, he indicated a bunch of little issues, and it took us a while to figure those out. Because when the VCC sends out recommendations, they go to the liaisons, and if the liaisons have changed, or if the liaison is super busy being chair, or whatever, these things can get lost, and then they sit on the floor until typically Greg at VCC notices and writes us about them. So those are the three sources of confusion, and I think we can straighten them all out by just working more closely together.
Cool.
Thank you, Jim. Quite a project. Item 24.
I just need to recuse myself from this because I have an immediate family member who is on this film crew, just in case.
I am also going to abstain from this. So.
Okay, well then I would move to approve number 24.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay. It's approved. I will take one more motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're done. See you guys in August.